Where?
That's what cops tell you.
Hapana mbaya kuna askari. Yes. Askari here being that animal.
Buzi pia ni officer.
Don't joke.
Sorry.
Unatukana kopro?
Yes, used for sniffing grass.
Good morning, everybody, and how are you doing? Hoping that you are very well this Tuesday morning, the 13th of April, 2021. Welcome to the Situation Room. Ndu,
Yes.
how are you?
Fine, thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
How
you
are
well?
I am, thank you.
Good. Good stuff. Good stuff. I am well too. Thank you for asking.
I was just about to see. Let a chick breathe. Jesus.
But you did.
Eric, how are you?
I'm fine.
Great.
Asante. City, you're well as well.
I'm very well, thank you, sir.
Hiyo ni mzuri.
Yes.
Hiyo yote ni mzuri.
Hiyo yote ni maendeleo.
Ni maendeleo. Na yote ni maendeleo. So welcome to the show. We will have a number of conversations today. So, Ati, what's happening with the university education and accreditation?
Well, one of the things that is happening as I speak now within government institutions, people, specifically those who acquired their education certificates, those are diplomas, degrees, and other degrees from universities abroad, the Commission on University Education is not just seeking, but they are demanding that there is a verification of those qualifications. Yes. Now, it may seem odd, but it isn't really anything odd if you think about it. Let me explain why I think about it. Because there's something in the circles that determine whether higher education is suitable, appropriate or not. It's called the process of accreditation. Now, right around the world, there are institutions that do nothing but determine that certain standards, high standards, are met and maintained. Not just with the institution as far as processes are concerned, but also with the courses that they offer. And with the courses that they offer come the personnel who offer it. So, right now, if you work for a government institution and you have qualifications that you acquired abroad, right, the local ones are easy to verify. You are expected to send in documentation that suitably justify those qualifications, like transcripts, so that they can be verified. Now, in this modern day and age, it is not that difficult to verify.
So now,
Yes.
what's the process of this verification? So you got your degree or diploma from, say, a university in Uganda.
Yes.
And we've seen a number of politicians who've gone through this process.
Yes.
So you are supposed to take your papers to the CUE?
Yes. You're right. As I said, in this day and age, you're right. Because it is required that you actually send so that they verify. And the reason why it is important is because that qualification is often the determinant of the position that you actually have and what it is that you do. So all they're doing is trying to determine whether what you say you have done and with the institution you have done it meet the master or meet the determining threshold that the Commission on University Education in this country sets.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll have the conversation at 7, and we'll hear a lot more about this. And then at 8, we'll talk about hospitals and what's happening in the country, right?
Yes.
So a story that appeared in the Standard yesterday on where hospitals are becoming...
Detention camps.
Basically, you've gone to hospital and you've been unable to clear the bill, and you stay there as your bill continues accumulating, as you look for money to clear the bill that you had already accumulated by the time you were being discharged. What's happening there? There's also the other issue of getting admission in the first place and you having to pay a certain amount as deposit to get admission. So this whole conversation we're going to have this morning, what does the law say? What are the requirements by the medical practitioners and pharmacy board, by the board that actually licenses health facilities in the country? What's the law? What are we supposed to do? That conversation, keep it right here for that at 8 o'clock. Let's talk about COVID-19. So, just that one move has actually helped our positivity rate dramatically, right?
Has dropped quite significantly.
Wow.
I know.
Have we actually seen that much reduction in movement?
I believe
To say that in 7 days, in 10 days, the positivity rate has dropped.
if you take the view that the percentages that we speak of is represented greatly by this region of what we call the Nairobi metropolis.
Yeah.
If you then only ensure that you cocoon the movement within that particular region, the likelihood of it spreading out of that region is minimized completely. And secondly, if you then reduce movement A by a certain time, again, it's just reduction. The reduction of movement means the reduction of movement of the virus, or the possible movement of the virus. It's logic that I think we've understood for some time.
Yeah, but this particular logic, look. So the highest positivity rate is being reported in these 5 counties.
Yes.
Okay? Now, you have not curtailed movement within the 5 counties.
No.
The people in those 5 counties are still moving.
Yes.
The only thing you've done is you've told them, be indoors and reduce your movement by 2 hours a day.
Actually,
But during the day, you have not really reduced that much movement.
no.
7 days.
Actually, you have. Let me explain to you why I think you have. When you tell people there's a curfew, everything that they do is now determined by that curfew. This third wave and just the data and the statistics around it scared the living daylights out of most people. And for many, it brought home the reality that this COVID is actually real. Forget this talk, is it not real? That discussion sort of like was shunted aside. So it's human behavior has been impacted just by the third wave and then what we call now the restrictions. So yes, are you saying there's movement? Yes. Is it reduced significantly? Significantly. Because the reason why movement was not curtailed is people were still toying with the idea, is it there, is it not there? Now there is that just clear understand that this thing is actually real and it can get you the person who thought it wasn't there. So people are curtailing their own movement. So movement within this particular region that we're saying, I'm saying it has, not I'm thinking, I'm saying it has reduced.
Really?
Yes.
To a level where we dropped by like 7 basis points in 7 days
Remember,
in terms of positivity rate.
remember positivity rates have to do with also the testing. Please understand. So unless somebody gives us a clear indication of the numbers that we're testing since the lockdown and the numbers were tested before the lockdown so that you can compare, all right? We can only go by the fact that given those who have tested, the numbers have reduced. That is all we can say. But the comparative basis that you would require to answer the question you've asked comprehensively, that hasn't actually been discussed.
Well, if the numbers are anything to go by, 486 people tested positive yesterday from a sample size of 2,989. So we're looking at a nationwide positivity rate of 16.3%.
It's gone up.
16.3 is what we're looking at now. We're understanding that when the lockdown was effected, we were at positivity of 22.7. Right? So yes, it has dropped about 7 points in the last 14 days. Now, this is assuming that, okay, so we must understand that the positivity rate that we're looking at now of 16.3% is from this particular sample that was taken. I think it would be necessary for us to get now of the average over the last 2 weeks. What then are we looking at a current positivity rate in the country?
I think we're seeing a consistency there in terms of the positivity rate since last week. Apart from I think 1 or 2 days where it went above 20%. The rest of the days it has actually been coming down to 15%, 16%, 14%, 15, 16. Right? So it's really, you can see a consistency in terms of dropping of that.
Well, let's see. The goal or the attempted target usually, according to World Health Organization standards, of course, is below 5%. Let's see what this means. But if from all indications, if this is what we're looking at, and we're looking at a reduction over the next 2 weeks yet again, then it's likely that we will see some changes as advised by experts. We'll look at that story later.
Okay.
But as advised by experts, what could be is that some of the restrictive measures then could be lifted if we see that these numbers continue to drop over the next 2 weeks. All right. So we're still looking at, unfortunately, 20 deaths have been reported in the last 24 hours. This is what was reported in the last 24 hours, and this has come very clear from the Ministry of Health. It doesn't mean that those deaths occurred. Now, interestingly, 20 deaths reported in the last 24 hours. Of those 20 deaths, 2 occurred in the last 24 hours. 5 within the last 1 month, and 13 being late death reports from facility record audits.
Okay.
All right. So the numbers that we see on a daily basis are not necessarily the numbers of people who died on that particular day. Okay, so those are the numbers that we're looking at. Of course, we're still looking at high worldwide numbers. Major things still happening in the western part of the world. The United States almost near 32 million cases. We see that they did expect their cases to rise, and right now spring is coming. In most parts of the United States, we expect to see the onset of hay fever. Flu season is right in the middle of it, and we're likely to see more cases. The head of the CDC warned about just this, and that's what they're grappling with. All right. Interestingly, they've done 420 million tests in the US.
Wow.
420 million, almost 421 million tests in the US. And India, which has 4 times its population, has done 257 million tests countrywide. India now has total number of 13,686,073 positive COVID-19 cases, and India also looking at approving the Sputnik 5 vaccine, because they were also looking at a point whereby they were having problems producing as much as the world demanded them to. So we understand that on one hand, India has a COVID-19 problem where the people are getting more and more infected. On the other hand, they have this huge responsibility of vaccine production. And they got to a point whereby they were slowing things down considerably. But now maybe they'll get a shot in the arm. No pun intended.
It's unlikely to happen soon. It's very unlikely. If you look at what was reported in yesterday's Daily Nation took this matter rather seriously. What was apparent was that there has been a surge of COVID positivity in India. So it isn't just so much a question of whether the ARVs, specifically the AstraZeneca vaccine, is actually being made available. Well, remember there was this debate of what we referred to as vaccine nationalism. Well, India has been accused of precisely that. They produce and they're saying, no, we need it for our people. But it isn't just with the COVID vaccine. No, it's even with the ARVs. There is an ARV called Remdesivir. Remdesivir is also a drug that some physicians have been using to combat severe cases of COVID. Okay. Now, its efficacy is in debate. Some say it works, some say it doesn't work, some say it works in elderly people. This discussion goes on. Now, that particular drug is imported to Kenya. That also, a halt has been put on the importation of that drug also. So remember, when you talk about COVID nationalism, from the perspective of those who manufacture it, they are only doing what they consider to be correct for their citizens. Because they really do have a right to look after the interests of their citizens. But what it also means is that commitments that had been made by that particular institution to other countries, say like the EU bloc, will be hampered. Because if India, with its population of 2 or 3 billion, taking most of the drugs, then it means, or the vaccines, those who had ordered and some who had even prepared may not be able to get the drugs at the time that they
You won't
want.
get it on time.
Yes. And if you fall into the category of countries that are waiting for the COVAX one, then you're going to wait.
So for us, our second dose Anyway, let's talk about that after this break. 18 minutes after 6. Good morning. How are you doing? Wherever you're tuned in, I can see a number of people who are already saying hello and good morning to you. We'll be saying good morning to you shortly. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Time for us to see how the weather is going to look like today in Nairobi, around the country and around the world. And then we'll look at the headlines.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
The realest and craziest couple are now on your screens. Terrence and Chebi are bringing you top celebrities and trendsetters on Thursday Night Live. It's double the fun and double the laughter every Thursday at 10 p.m. on KTN Home.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, a little bit of a drizzle in some parts of Nairobi this morning. We're going to see highs of 23, lows of 16 today. Rain in Nyeri at 15, highs of 22 and lows of 13. The low will be 15 in Nakuru where it's clear. It'll go to highs of 25. 24 will be the high recorded in Eldoret this morning at 15. It's clear right now. 27 the high in Kisumu. Rain for some parts of the city at 19 degrees. It's 18 degrees and raining in Kakamega. We'll go to highs of 26 and lows of 17. We'll see 31 the high in Mombasa. Rain showers this morning at 25. It's also raining in parts of Malindi at 26. Highs of 31. Thunderstorms in Kampala this morning and quite heavy so at 19. Going to highs of 23 and lows of 18. Light rain in Dar es Salaam at 24. We'll see highs of 28 today. Johannesburg will record highs of 27, coming down to lows of 14. Clear skies this morning, mostly clear in Lagos this morning at 26. Again, another hot day, highs of 34, highs of 32 in Kinshasa, where it's mostly clear at 23. Sunny conditions in Beijing at 14, highs of 17 and lows of 3. We're looking at a low of 0 in Paris, rather chilly today at 2. It'll go to highs of 11. Clear skies at 3 in London, highs of 12 and lows of 2. And rain showers in New York. It's still Monday night. Coming into Tuesday, we'll likely see highs of 9 and lows of 7.
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
Twenty-one minutes after 6.
Okay, so everybody's tuned in this morning. Cyprian Moro is tuning from Nakuru County. Says good morning. Tuning in from Mombasani, and that's Cartel 3. I'll call him that. Cyprian Moro tuned in and says good morning, guys. Thanking God that he's up and early. Dagoreti Kabiria, and that's what McDonald Makanga is, and he says, mark me present. Good morning. Good morning to you, McDonald. Lucy Wakambo is tuning from Nakuru County. Josh Culture tuned in from Bungoma. That's county 00 something or 0 something.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
0 something. There's only 6 counties that are 9 counties that are 0 something.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you. Rogers Lie.
This exam, you're both failing.
Only 9 counties are
Know
0
your
something.
counties, for heaven's sake. You just can't know 001 and 047 and 017. 047.
There's also 017, don't worry.
Yes, it exists. Anyway, carry on.
Shikamo City, that's from Rogers Lie.
Thank you.
That's the answer. Shikamo, you say thank you.
Well,
County.
the response is marahaba, but I'm thanking him for the greetings.
Oh, voila.
Yes.
Okay. County 001 is tuned in from Medali Yasiku. County 001 is tuned in, period. Medali Yasiku Twangoja. Okay? Kisumu Kibos is tuned in, and that's where Jeffrey Mochama is watching live. Good morning, team. Tuned in from Mombasa. That's Charles Njenga. Ondicho. Tuned in from Kwamtusi Mwengi. Hey. Good morning, guys. Lakini jana hiyo CJ interview ilikuwa moto. Let's see Patricia Mbote will be saying. Let's see what she'll be saying. That's Jose, and he's tuned in from Malindi. Mukoya Iowa says, good morning. An early bird catches a worm. Okay. I was waiting for this significant situation room from 4 a.m. My goodness. And that is where you're tuned in from Lindy Kibra. All right. Haron Stakos is tuned in from Migori, and Waterman Jeffrey is tuned in from Hennepin County. Olima Olimalas. Olima is a word actually in my language, and it means it is a good thing. So good morning, Liz. And you say good morning, and you're tuning from Rabur, Kisumu.
Olima, one word means it is a good thing.
Olima is good. Olima is it is good. But it's been put together, but it's two words. Oli and ma. Olima. It is good. So it's a good thing that you're tuned in this morning. Good morning, everybody.
I thought something about Eziokobundu has good.
No, it doesn't actually.
What is Eziokobundu?
No, I told you
Life
Ifoma,
is
I told
good
you
or something.
Ifoma is a good thing.
All right.
So you see the word now, ma, is good. You see it here? Olima, it is good. Ifoma, good.
I am ma with you.
You're good with me? I'm good with you too, Cindy.
Ma. Ma. Isaiah's Ben Agina, good morning as well. He's also tuned in this morning. A very good person. So, everybody who's tuned in, karibuni sana katika mjadala wa siku ya leo. Bwana Muga,
Kaka.
what is the proverb of the day?
The proverb of the day is a straightforward proverb from none other than the great country of Kenya. An orphaned calf licks its own back.
A what?
An orphaned calf licks its own back.
I got it. That one I got it. And I like it.
Oh, yeah.
You're just seeing pictures of an orphan calf, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's a sad thing.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the headlines.
Let's. So, on the Standard today, many stories, but let's look at this judge that wept for justice in the interviews as the interviews for the position of CJ begin. Justice Said Chitembwe, the first on the hot seat, gets emotional as he makes his pitch to become the next Chief Justice. Okay, so yes, Chitembwe weeps is what we are being told now. Kwale-born Justice Said Chitembwe flipped a Uniball SX 217 rollerball pen. I love the detail, don't you? He flipped a pen.
Whose byline is it on that story?
It's Kamal Muthoni.
Well, Kamal.
So he flips this pen between his fingers and shed a few tears and wiped them dry with a serviette, no less. But what he did not do was to promise heaven. As Justice Chitembwe fielded questions from the 9-member Judicial Service Commission on his suitability to replace former Chief Justice David Maraga, other parties were working to terminate the proceedings. In a last-minute dash, Toflin Nafula sought audience before High Court Judge Anthony Murima to persuade him to stop the interviews because Acting Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu was not spearheading the process. Justice Murima, however, declined to issue the order sought. Instead, he sent the petitioner's file to Justice Mwilu to appoint 3 judges to hear the case. The matter will be mentioned tomorrow at noon. Back to the man of the hour, Justice Chitembwe made his pitch as 18 eyes closely watched his every move. The JSC members were all ears as the judge described his vision for the judiciary if he clinched the coveted position. The judge wore a navy blue suit, and cufflinks and such. However, the interviewers were tough, but it was soon clear the judge was made of stern stuff and would not be cowed into giving comfortable answers on thorny issues. This was a man who was going to speak his mind. So when asked by the commissioners whether he would have chosen his words more carefully when writing the judgment in a case where he freed a man accused of defilement, the judge said he would not massage his language because the victim behaved like an adult. His critics, he added, were free to judge him on the merits of the case. Robbery with violence is no longer an issue. Prisons are full of young men jailed for defilement. Anybody who defiles a person under the age of 18 is guilty. How do you take a 19-year-old for having a relationship with a 17-year-old? How? Somebody else would have written it and massaged the paragraphs. I did the best, and the number of magistrates who have told me I have freed them from the shackles of the Sexual Offences Act are many. So this was one issue that he had to deal with in terms of that judgment that he made, and coming again to see if it would allow him take the seat
Of Chief Justice.
because of that judgment.
I think that was a long interview. My God, 5
laborious
hours.
to watch.
One judge per day.
Right.
Let's put it this way: they have the whole day.
Yeah.
Take your time. We're here.
But
Just tell us.
they also brought up issues of his relationship with KRA. Yes. A basic requirement, they were supposed to file and present 3 years submissions of tax returns. Him filed two. Then there was the issue of his wife's financial status and wealth declaration didn't provide. These people are thorough.
Gotta be Chief
But
Justice
some
of
of
the
these
country.
things are basics, basically. Some of those things are really basic. And he argues that, they are supposed to have provided 3 referees. They're saying that you provided 1. He says, I provided 3.
You know something?
You only see one.
You're seeing 1. There are 3.
Actually, the
I'm not going to massage your eyes.
He wasn't massaging anything yesterday.
no, what comes to the fore is not this is somebody who has done wrong.
Yeah.
It tells you that for most Kenyans, the tax compliance that is required by KRA is not something that people find easy to do.
Yeah.
In this sense, you first of all need to get a professional to actually explain to you. You know this website they talk about where you can make
iTax.
online. That thing. Unless someone guides you,
It's a maze.
it is not simple.
So, for example, in this particular case, and I saw the explanation that he was giving, so he did not get a valid tax compliance certificate. Why? Because there's a 50,000 shillings arrears that he has with, is it 50,000 shillings or 5 million? Some arrears that he has with power bills.
That's quite a difference.
There are several
actually.
meters, power meters that are associated with him in properties that he owns, where they say that he has not been remitting tax. Okay? So he's like, by the way, all this, our business interests are managed by my wife. I did not even know that there was this thing. When you're just going to apply, I need a tax compliance certificate because I'm applying for a job and I've been called for an interview next week. You just go to iTax and it tells you no. Why? I don't know, there's something you did not do 2 years ago. And it's not something you can resolve in a day because, again, KRA has its own KRA ways of doing things. So here he is like, I was not even aware that we had this issue in the first place. But here I am.
Is ignorance a defense in this country?
Now, unfortunately, you're talking to a judge.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. He, more than anybody else, ought to know. You see, again, the taxman implores us to file our tax returns, and they actually take some time and bother to ensure that the message is passed across.
Yeah. It's 500,000 shillings penalty.
Yes. However, it's not a simple process. I am saying this as somebody who has tried to go through that iTax, okay? I had to go to someone who actually understands those things better for it to get done. Then it was done.
Yeah.
Myself, I gave up.
As many people often do. And
No,
they
I
get
give
themselves
up.
in
Oh
trouble.
yeah, oh yeah, it's crazy. What stood out for me with Justice Chitembwe, and I was glad that he applied for the job, is this particular one case.
Yes, it's the case. And that was
This particular case, and what he says, look, it's on record, I have set precedents for this particular one. And the argument is, he says, go to prison facilities today. Many of the cases that you're finding, people going into facilities, is on this particular issue.
And they're young people.
Of sexual offense, and they're young people. We need to have the conversation. He was the first to raise this. Other judges have come in, and other magistrates have also come in and said, look, let's review this. The issue of the mandatory minimum sentencing, that it doesn't matter, you must go in for X number of years. The issue of then reviewing, what are you talking about? Is it only on the issue of age? So he says, you have just cleared fourth form, you were doing form 4, and you had a girlfriend in school, and then you've just turned 18, and then you've gone and participated in a sexual act with your 17-year-old girl. You're an adult. You have reached consenting age, and she hasn't. Go in. I think this is a conversation that he has done well to open up, and it can be had. There are very many people who will argue for and against, and it's important for this to happen.
Sure.
It's important for it to happen. So let's take a break and then we look at, so Professor Kameri Mbote is coming in today. Hey, she is a big gun, this one. 27 minutes to 7. Let's see what's happening on the roads. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. Have you visited that lately? Jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. It's this portal and platform that's provided by the Standard Group, where jobs are posted. The people who have opportunities can go and advertise them on jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. People who are looking for jobs can go and find them on jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. There are very many people who are nowadays actually conning people on this particular one. Oh, you're looking for a job? Come find this portal, you pay X amount of money. No, just come to a legitimate and verifiable platform, jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Have you seen them? Am I lying?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you.
Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone was asking me what channel is SpiceFM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
What
you.
a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. Very Swiss temperatures.
Okay,
Traffic.
guys, so the roads are, well, it's a bit foggy this morning, and so it means it's going to slow down a little bit. Some fog being experienced on Mombasa Road this morning and trying to get to the road leading towards the southern bypass. That it's the ICD route this morning. There's head-on collision that has taken place right at the JKI8 turning, CBD bound. So we need to watch out for that. There's already an accident that's happened today, guys. You need to keep your fog lights up and then also try to be careful as possible because visibility is actually quite poor today. Thika Road is not experiencing as much traffic this morning. Looking pretty good, trying to get in and out of the CBD. Not too much of an issue. The accident that we've seen on Mombasa Road is going to slow things down considerably. So again, we need to be careful, rather be ready for some massive traffic there. Take a look at Ngong Road and Langata Road. Getting into the city looks all right. Jogo Road is starting to build up as you get towards Landis as well. Coming from industrial area slows down a little bit also, but not too bad at the moment. Let's keep an eye on how this opens up in a bit. We'll check it again. SpiceFM KE on Twitter is how you can get in touch, or text 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
So the interview is called
94.4 Spice FM.
And of Professor Annie Patricia Kadiro Kameri Mbote, Senior Counsel. First woman Dean of the School of Law, the University of Nairobi. Founder Dean of the School of Law at the Strathmore University. Academic. And people are going to watch what she's going to say. Yes. This one is going to be interesting. So let's look at other headlines as well. There's a case of the National Lands Commission's Communications Director, Jennifer Wambua. Investigators have yet to piece together what could have happened that led to the death of this lady and who could have killed her. So apparently now there is a boda rider who came to the elders and Nyumakumi leaders at Kerarapon in Ngong, Kajiado. So last Thursday, a boda rider who out of nowhere volunteered information to village elders and Nyumakumi officials provided the investigators a much-needed boost. The rider, according to investigators, told the elders that he had seen a man buy drinking water and take it to the spot where Wambua's body was found. He also claimed to have seen Wambua seated under the thicket to where the mystery man headed with a bottle of water. That was on the 12th of March, the day Wambua was last seen as she left her office at Athi House in Nairobi. It's not known how she got to Kirarapon, but the fact that she was seen with a stranger proves that she was alive when she reached the location where her body was found the next day. There are 2 other people who are in police custody, and those 2 other people say, yes, we actually were with this particular lady at that particular spot, but we left her and she was alive. Now, that other mysterious man could be the one that performed the murder. So police are still, wondering, so what exactly happened? There's also the other matter of apparently she had received some money from the National Land Commission paid directly to her account. And the NLC says that it was paying her for organizing the Nairobi International Trade Fair last year. 6 million shillings was wired from the National Land Commission to the personal account of the communications director. And the NLC says, well, we were wiring the money for her to organize NLC's participation at the Nairobi show. Nairobi show didn't take place, of course, because of COVID. Then there was more money, 2.7 million shillings, wired to her account last month. Officials at NLC have told the police that Wambua looked troubled in the last days leading to her murder. The police now believe that there could be a link between this money that she was receiving from NLC and her murder. Apparently, she had also withdrawn some money the day before she disappeared.
Why would they pay her in a personal account?
Now, these are matters that now, come to the fore and you start wondering. So, is this standard practice? Is what you guys do?
Done.
So, are you saying that she's not a contractor? She is an employee of the organization,
and they were not paying her for a job she did.
No,
they were facilitating the organization of this.
Yeah.
Right. Strange.
The NLC has very many strange things attached to it. But why somebody would be killed, I am not going to bother speculating.
Yeah, it's a big one. Remember, there's also the other case. That before she joined the National Land Commission, she worked in the Ministry of Information. And there's an ongoing case about 122 million shillings corruption that took place in a government advertising agency. Okay? And she was a prime witness in that particular case. Initially, the moment she was killed, that was the first speculation. That, the case was just due to come back to court. She was due to go and testify. Now she's died. Now investigators seem to be saying, okay, now there's that. But there's also this particular matter of her receiving money directly into her account and withdrawing some money and going to meet with some people. And she appears to have been seated somewhere talking to some people. And there's a Boda rider who says, I saw them. I saw the lady there. And I saw someone buying water and going with the water there. So... It's strange. It's strange. Let's wait for justice. It's
puzzling.
It is.
Quite. Something interesting in this era of COVID, where many institutions, organizations, and businesses are recording losses.
Yeah.
According to the Business Daily, insurers have earned 1.3 billion as COVID cuts hospital visits.
Oh.
They're saying this is what the report says. Medical insurers in Kenya posted a record 1.3 billion in underwriting profits last year on slowed healthcare claims as patients avoided hospitals for fear of contracting coronavirus. Latest data from the Insurance Regulatory Authority shows that the medical insurance firms rebounded from years of losses compounded by rising hospital bill claims. Well, it must be mentioned that insurers have not been looking after patients who test positive with COVID. COVID was not insured. So even as we read this and as it is true, that little detail must be mentioned.
Sure.
Yes.
All right. Speaking about those who continue to suffer, the government now sets aside 2.28 billion shillings to support drought-stricken counties. Government spokesman Colonel Cyrus Oguna says county governments, in collaboration with the national government, have rolled out plans to assist the affected areas, which include distribution of water to households in Turkana, Mandera, Garissa, and Wajir. Over 1.4 million Kenyans are at risk of hunger and starvation and potentially face acute food shortage. According to Colonel Oguna, the government is committed to ensure that no Kenyan dies due to lack of food. The national government, in collaboration with the affected counties, has initiated interventions which include close monitoring of areas that may be threatened before immediate release. So he spoke yesterday and he said that the rollout plan is to assist the affected areas, which include those we've mentioned. So this would include provision of relief food in Turkana County by the county government, cash transfer under the Hunger Safety Net program, which is currently in phase 3. So here, every household will receive 2,700 shillings every 2 months.
How much?
2,700 shillings every 2 months, and targets over 101,800 households in the counties of Turkana, Mandera, and Marsabit. The government spends about 2 billion on the program every year, apparently. He further said that plans are underway to incorporate into the program the counties of Wajir, Isiolo, Tana River, Garissa, and Samburu. So there are only a couple of counties that are in this safety net, and they're hoping to widen this a little bit. So other safety net programs such as Inua Jamii form part of the interventions which continue to be implemented. And they've said that they've also availed subsidized seeds, fertilizers, and a wide range of farm inputs to increase small-scale farm productivity. All right, so they're giving food and some money here and there, but at the same time also trying to provide the resources needed to make sure that they can plant and then harvest. So a little bit of an answer to what we were talking about yesterday. Measures in place to curb the suffering that will come about because of the drought.
Well, let's wait and see how that goes. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Time for another quick break. At 6:45, we are looking at the newspaper headlines and we're seeing what's been reported, the big stories. We'll be talking about this particular billionaire, 106 years old, Gerald Gikonyo, who built a property empire from hawking vegetables. One of those who own multiple properties in Nairobi CBD and Upper Hill and other areas. Among those who are young men came from Murang'a, a place called Ravia. And they set up businesses left, right, center, north, south, east, west, everywhere. Good morning.
Spice FM.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they're getting per year, how much inconvenience they're causing, as much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
They profiled the gentleman called Gerald Gikonyo. Gerald Gikonyo was among those people who moved to Nairobi in the 1930s, set up a vegetable hawking business, and he recalls that he would hang 2 large baskets, one on each shoulder, and crisscross the city selling the fresh produce. He could not afford to be late as sales depended on getting to his customers before they settled on the meal for the day. Selling vegetables was tough because if it was raining, you'd have to work in the rain and you had to rush so that you did not find the families had already cooked. In the late 40s, he says, I sat down and said a prayer. I talked to God and told him I was grateful for the job that I had worked at diligently, but it was not one that I could do in my old age. So I asked for his help and get another job. His prayer was answered when 5 friends invited him to jointly invest in a hotel. Gikonyo and one partner were charged with running the hotel at Pangani, a few kilometers from the central business district. This venture allowed him to save and gave him the experience he needed when the time came to go it alone. So since then, Mr. Gikonyo has owned several buildings and residential and properties in Nairobi. The iconic landmarks include the Alpha Hotel on Ronald Ngala Street in the CBD, the famous Magomano Hotel in the Nairobi CBD. He also has interests in Upper Hill and several places, several residential properties around the city. Interesting story that you can read today in the Financial Standard.
There's an interesting story in the Star on page 10. Firm sold to Kenya defective mosquito nets.
Defective mosquito nets?
Defective.
That means what? Big holes?
Had holes.
It is, now that you've asked, let me respond. One, Global Fund has specific requirements for the nets that they approve of. And they require manufacturers whom they have pre-qualified to produce using those standards. Apparently, in the years 2017 and 2018, mosquito nets that were provided to many African countries fell below that particular required standard. And they're saying that this is one of the reasons why that same period there was a spike in the increase of malaria infections. Yes. Now,
so what was the defect?
Yes. One, the quality of the net itself. It was supposed to have a certain lifespan. It didn't.
Okay.
Secondly, it's supposed to be sprayed, dipped into and contain certain chemicals that would either disable or kill mosquitoes when mosquitoes land on them.
Right.
A repellent.
Okay? It's not. It goes beyond repellent. Repellent just scares them away. This one kills.
Kills them.
Okay. Now, if you
Insecticide.
Yes. If you do not put enough of that substance on the net, and if the quality of the net is that it doesn't last long, then the protection it's supposed to provide, very simply, will not be provided. So you will have a net that actually doesn't do very much good for you.
Okay.
So here you will be sleeping thinking you are protected and you are not protected.
You're not.
The story goes further to say that Global Fund are now saying that the company that they had pre-qualified, it is, I'm going to mention the name, it is a Pakistani organization, okay, by the name of Tana, Tana Nettings, okay, and they are asking to be repaid all the money they paid back because they gave the quality control requirements and they were completely ignored. So essentially, instead of being a safety net...
So this time, it's not a Kenyan company.
Nope. Instead of the safety net, but they pre-qualified, they recommended that we buy from those people.
Yeah.
But KEMSA is also being fingered in this matter.
Why?
Because even when an alarm was raised and they were told to stop buying, unfortunately, we already bulk bought.
Well, yeah.
And we're distributing.
Yeah.
So, yes, I thought I would just mention that.
Okay. That's quite serious.
Okay. So, let's step over to Somalia for just a minute, shall we?
Yes.
Somalia lawmakers vote to extend presidential term for up to 2 years. So I guess it's not just them. We heard the other day that Putin did the same thing. The Russians.
Putin hasn't done that for the first time. Putin has been playing around with that constitution of theirs for the longest time.
Yes, and it was touted in the last couple of years that, even as much as he was encouraging good governance and things, that the thought was that he would make sure he was around for some time. Yeah. And it looks like he is going to be.
Good governance under him.
Of course. So now, back to Somalia. They vote to extend. Somalia's lower house of parliament yesterday voted to extend the presidential term for another 2 years to let the country prepare for direct elections, according to the Speaker of the Chamber. Mohammed Mursal Sheikh said 149 lawmakers voted for the proposal, 1 rejected it and 3 abstained. The move underscores widening divisions over extending the 4-year term of President Mohammed Abdullahi Mohammed, who faces growing pressure to quit after his term ended. It was unclear if the motion still had to pass the Senate. Senator Ayub Ismail Yusuf told Reuters that the lower house had authority to decide on elections, but Senator Hias Ali Hassan said the opposition disagreed. So, all of this back and forth essentially means that the presidential term would be extended for another 2 years. Parliament was supposed to elect a new president on the 8th of February, this February that just passed us, but the exercise was delayed because new lawmakers have yet to be picked by the elders. We understand that that's how the system works, that the elders are the ones who make this selection. we have stopped the parliament session today. This was according to the Mogadishu Police Chief Sadak Omar. We had a responsibility bigger than a personal one. We have to solve anything that can bring violence and war in Mogadishu. And they're not interested in that anymore. Somalia's police commissioner Hassan Hijar announced on Facebook that Hassan had been fired and replaced. The guy who said that they were stopping the presidential election then lost his job. All right. So we're just looking at an extension of terms here. It will be interesting to see how things evolve in this country in the next couple of years.
This was coming.
Yeah?
That whole issue of, Kenya is interfering with the internal, running of affairs in this country.
They have their own issues to sort out.
This was all coming.
But they always had their own issues to sort out. And also, remember, what politicians do in one country, do not assume that politicians in another country will not do.
Yeah.
Divert the attention of your people and, point to an external aggressor.
Yes.
Okay? It makes for better conversation and it galvanizes people together.
Yep. Now, here they are. So the presidential term is extending. There's been that talk of pushing Kenya's election. Anyway, let's see how that goes. We'll talk about
there's been that discussion, all right. And there's justification for it.
Yeah.
When you consider, very simply, the five-year term.
It's COVID years. A lot of things. Remember the gentleman called Ferdinand Waitito Babayao?
Yes.
The former governor of Kiambu County.
Sounds like something in the history books.
Yeah. There's a story here on page 5 of The Nation that says he is fighting to save his property. And the property is in the name of 2 luxury cars that he had used as collateral for a loan of 10 million shillings with Monanchi Credit Limited. They have come for those vehicles because the governor, they say, has not been repaying his loans. In documents filed at Kiambu Law Courts, Waitito is, however, arguing that he is unable to service the loan because he has no sustainable income after he was pushed out of office. He argues that the little money that he gets goes towards paying legal fees to defend himself against graft charges related to his tenure as governor. He says that due to current financial constraints I'm facing, I'm unable to clear the said loan within the aforestated period. But I hasten to add that with a lot of difficulties, coupled with the fact that I'm facing numerous cases before an anti-corruption court, which has incurred me a lot of costs and expenses by hiring advocates, I have endeavored to at least clear a sum of 1.28 million shillings. So out of the 10 million shillings he had borrowed, at least he has worked hard, and Monanchi Credit should give him credit for the fact that he has paid 1.28 million shillings.
It doesn't actually work like that.
No?
No, it doesn't.
Oh, okay.
You see, whenever you approach the banking sector with a logic that appeals to you, you are likely to encounter a brick wall. There is a way in which financial institutions work, and there's a way in which they think. And you need to understand it. If you understand it, your problems will be few. But if you insist on applying whatever logic you think is sound, but I paid them last year, okay, fine. See how that goes.
But now even the financial institutions should also be adjusting.
They should understand. Yeah. The guy had a job.
If you don't have a sustained income anymore, surely.
Actually, usually the way that works also is you tell them in advance.
He didn't know he was going to be kicked out of it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
No. The more advance here means you don't wait until they come for the assets.
That advance.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe he had.
Even if it's in the public domain, and you have not. But if you haven't communicated to them officially, how are they to know what your sources of income? I mean, for heaven's sake.
They can't just assume that's just
no,
the governorship salary.
All he's doing here, Babayao, is he's saying, I am not disputing owing this defendant company claim. There is a dispute over the actual balance owing to the first defendant, but I pray for a reasonable time within which to sell some of my properties and clear all the outstanding loan balance upon calculation of the same, and or in the alternative, be allowed to settle the same by considerable installments. So he's saying, let's talk. Niko na pesa yako, najua sijakataa niko na pesa yako, lakini sasa lazima kila kitu ita polisi. Hatu ni kuongea bana hii maneno.
You know, my brother, by the time they come for you, they are rogue institutions that don't actually even give you the requisite time or notice that is required. But by and large, financial institutions tend to communicate.
They would have communicated?
They tend to communicate. But by the time they come into your doorsteps, they usually communicate. It's something they do. Looking for their money. Man, they are good at it. They're very, very good at it.
They should style up. Si ati sijui niko na pesa yako. Si mimi ndo nilikuja wewe ndo ulinitafuta. Si mimi ndio nilikuja nikachukua pesa.
Okay.
Sio ngoja basi nitakuja kulipa.
For purpose of discussion.
Si lazima unitafute.
It's interesting that we can have that conversation. Unfortunately, banks don't budge when it comes to some of those things.
Yeah, unfortunately.
They don't budge.
So, you have something?
I do.
Okay, let's
do it. Prince Philip died, right?
Yes.
And
are you asking us?
No, I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm just reminding you.
Just to confirm.
Yes.
Yes.
So the British state is a state of mourning. The Commonwealth also in a state of mourning. Now, there's an island called Tanna, right? And this is where the Vanuatu tribes exist. And for them, Prince Philip was a god. So they have been thrown into many, many days of mourning.
Which place is this?
It's in the Pacific. It's an island in the Pacific called Tanna. It's a Pacific island called Tanna, and the people are called the Vanuatu. Okay, so quickly, for them, he's a god, and they're going through this whole ceremony over the next few weeks. They'll be burning pigs and roasting pigs and all sorts of things.
Will they be eating them?
They'll be eating the pigs as well.
Ah, okay.
And putting out, their wealth and riches on display.
This island is part of the Commonwealth.
It is.
Okay.
Yes, I thought that was interesting.
Will they conclude when he's buried on Friday?
When he's buried is when they will conclude, and then there will be a week after that of mourning and continuous sacrifices and such.
Wow. Okay. That's an interesting one. Keep it right here. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. In the next hour, we talk about that issue, small matter of accreditation of your academic credentials. Okay? Whether you've acquired them locally or abroad. So then, how are they recognized? That's what we'll be talking about. And then at the 8 o'clock hour, we speak to the chair of the Private Hospitals Association, talking about how hospitals are treating their customers, or how their customers are treating the facilities that have been so gracious as to afford them some good facility. Good morning. It's now 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life. SpiceFM, Nakuru.
Okay, so where we have the traffic is Mombasa Road this morning, and that's in and outbound. Coming into Mombasa Road is not so bad until you get to certain pockets, but outbound is where we have the issues. You can use the southern bypass getting into the city. Remember that you're not going to be able to use that part of Bunyala Road and then passing Nyeri roundabout. It wasn't too terrible yesterday, actually, guys. So let's see how we can manage it today. Getting into the CBD then from other parts doesn't look too bad either. Langata Road into town, Gong Road into the city. Let's look at Landys Road headed into the CBD. That looks all right, not too bad. The eastern, southern, northern Red Hill bypasses are up for use, guys, and they're looking pretty good. Kenya Ferry Services still telling us that 3 ferries up for use this morning. Not to forget, *712# is how you pay for your trip. Don't use cash because you'll be turned back. All right, let's avoid traffic as best we can. Let's look out of the city of Nairobi in a bit. Talk to us about what you might see in case anything does go weird or you find good route. SpiceFM KE is how you get in touch on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation
2.5
Room,
minutes after 7.
the
This
only
is
way to
biggest
start your
conversation,
day.
Tuesday, the 13th day of April 2021. Ramadan Mubarak, Ramadan Kareem to our friends, the Muslim brothers and sisters. We wish you lovely and fruitful month of Ramadan. CT, as we begin, let's first say good morning to our audience on KTN Home who are joining us from now until 9 o'clock. Welcome to your radio experience on TV. City, today's proverb.
An orphaned calf licks its own back.
An orphaned calf
Yes.
licks its own back.
Yes.
Okay. I feel Oishe for that story.
For the calf.
Feeling Oishe for that story. Yes. Ohwachi Spike says, did you change your meter band? We are not getting you from 90.9 in Nyeri. Asante sana Ohwachi, hatujabadilisha mita bendi. Tuna hitilafu kidogo tu ya mitambo. Lakini engineers are on the ground in Nyeri and we're going to be sorting out that 90.9 frequency in Nyeri. We are live streaming the show, however, on SpiceFM KE YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or www.spicefm.co.ke. We are live on KTN Home in Nyeri and other parts of the country. We are also live in Malindi at 97.7. In Nakuru, it's 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret, Kisumu 102.5, 87.9 in Mombasa, and Nairobi 94.4. So, Commission on University Education.
If there's one thing parents in this country of Kenya agree on, is the importance of educating their children. And parents allocate, they put aside almost every resource that they have at their disposal to ensuring that their children actually get an education that they can afford. The understanding is that beyond primary and secondary education, they will have some training, post-secondary school training. Hopefully, if they can afford it and if they're qualified for it, a diploma, certificate, perhaps even a degree. And for those who have the energy and the will, they pray that the children will pursue even higher academic qualifications. The understanding for the longest time was that with these qualifications, you then had some guarantee of a job. People like myself, in the time when we graduated, from our degrees in the university, we actually had letters of appointment waiting for us even before we had finished our exams. But in this 21st century, that is history that is so far gone that it almost represents an unreality. People have their qualifications and jobs aren't as forthcoming as had been presumed. But then, even with the understanding, something else has happened. In the last 2 decades, one of the biggest growth industries in this country has been the education sector, more so in higher learning. We've had a sprouting of universities, colleges, and with them, we've had a sprouting of many, many people who hitherto had not had an opportunity to learn, having learning brought to their doorsteps, right within the areas in which they live. Now, this positive proliferation of education has also led to something that perhaps is a little less favorable than just the proliferation. And that is the proliferation of qualifications and institutions that don't quite meet the required standards. Now, when you talk about standards, you have to ask, are there standards? Then the answer is yes. In this country, we have the Commission of University Education that oversees these standards. The Ministry of Education is the umbrella ministry under which every learning in this country falls under. But the Commission on University Education oversees this. Now, when I say oversee, what do I mean? What I mean is, before an institution gets what people refer to as a charter or accreditation, they must begin as some form of learning institution. And they are then told what it is that is required of them. You are informed. Because when you want to set up an institution, you seek permission, you seek licensure, and you are told. Then this commission will send individuals over a period of time to determine whether you meet that standard. Now, the standard is based on not just the courses you offer, but the qualification of the staff who are in those institutions that guarantee that the quality that is required by that particular commission are met. Now, after that long process, you then get what I'm loosely referred to as certification. That certification in academic terms is called accreditation. Now, in this country, we have that one organization. If you go to the US, I mentioned the US because people go to the US in large numbers in this country. The accreditation isn't conducted by one body. In that vast country, you have regional accreditation bodies, whether it is the Western accreditation body, the Middle accreditation body, and so forth. In the UK, it's also different. They have an independent commission that actually deals with these matters, but independent but government-owned. Now, it is a continuous process. For many countries, the accreditation takes, after every 5 years, the process of determining whether the processes and the standards which are required have been maintained is carried out. Now, recently, in compliance with this, the Commission on University Education in Kenya has determined that beyond understanding and determining or ratifying the quality assurance of the qualifications we have in this country, qualifications that are acquired outside the country, they require those qualifications to go under the same rigorous attention. Now, in 2015, an interesting body was set up in this country to help with this sort of thing. It's called the National Qualifications Authority. Now, the National Qualifications Authority was set up in 2015, okay? Now, what they do, for instance, if you want to determine and to understand whether your qualification meets the master, they have a website. And all you do is you register, and they have a portal, and you can then follow the details. They're quite detailed, and they explain to you what you need to do. Now, why this is important again is because of the unfavorable thing I mentioned earlier. There are many institutions that offer degrees internationally and locally, and some of them don't quite meet that particular master set up by these institutions. Now, it is even more so once online education came into being. Because with online education, all that was required by many of these institutions was what you call accreditation, again from these bodies. Now, many Kenyans, especially now during the COVID times, have taken a lot of time to actually upgrade their learning and understanding. And many people are getting educated. And many people qualify. But the question is, do these qualifications meet the master? Now, to understand this, you need to understand, is that accreditation recognized? That's the first thing that you need to understand. When you say recognized, is it an accreditation that actually exists within the boundaries of the country that you have acquired your degree? Now, you may think that that university is known. Yes, it is known. But is that particular degree that you have in that discipline, is that discipline in that university, does it meet their accreditation qualifications? I know what I'm saying sounds a little complicated, but unfortunately, in this day and age where it is even very easy for people to provide falsified documents, some of these ratifications that are being carried out in this country become mandatory and they become necessary. Now, I, for instance, took the bother of trying to determine my qualifications, whether they were ratified or whether they met the master. And I came across something very interesting. One of my qualifications, which offers me a title, the university had an accreditation issue with the authorities. So now, what decisions do I make? Is my qualification then ratified? Is it an authentic qualification? The institution is authentic, but there is an issue of accreditation. So does it then mean that any qualification that is offered by that particular institution is not
recognized
or trustworthy? Do you then, if you have a title, use the title or do you not use the title? Which is which? If you are a keen reader of the papers, there are cases every once in a while that appear where an institution withdraws a qualification they gave someone. And usually it's because they feel that something that didn't meet the standards that they set had been done in qualifying for that particular award. So they withdraw it. We've also had situations in this country where institutions have been shut down by the authorities. Now, when that institution is shut down, does it then mean that the people who took their courses in that particular institution, that their qualifications are no longer valid? See, these are questions that one may ask. There are some decisions that are made for you. When some institutions are shut down, especially if they are government, the students are then asked to transfer to yet another institution while this particular institution sorts out their issues. But it is something that people need to take seriously, because it then follows that whatever you do and whatever you have achieved, if it is based on your qualification and there is an issue either with accreditation or with a licensure or with the institution itself, then whatever you may have based your work experience and living standards on is brought into question. So, yes.
I think it goes beyond just taking it seriously. I think it's just even being aware that this is a thing.
Yes. Taking it seriously means beyond being aware, you try and ensure that you are clear about it.
But I'm saying that many people do not know that they actually need to do this, because the assumption is that once you attend an institution of higher learning, that as you take for gospel truth
You
that
assume that
assume that
they've
they've gotten
done
all
due
their ducks
diligence?
in a row, and that they have all that they need to do to make sure once they're conferring this degree to you, or whatever, your diploma to you, that they have done what they needed to do in order for you to go on your merry way. Who would have thought that you then need to come back and make sure later on that they actually have everything in place? And if they don't, it could then shed some kind of negative light on you as an individual. You talked about an issue with accreditation of your former institution, and then that could mean whether you could or could not use a particular title that was then conferred on you by virtue of the fact that you completed that course of education. Who would know such a thing unless now you were keen on some of these details? So you go about using this title, and then somebody comes and says, hold on a minute. You may go, because this is a real life situation that could happen. You may go for an interview somewhere one day, and somebody sitting on that panel has taken keen interest in just this thing that we're talking about. They say, hold on a minute, this qualification that you say now you're bringing to the table, we must look at this now keenly, because that institution at some point had an issue. And here you are with egg on your face, and you had no idea that this actually is the case. Whose responsibility is it, though? All the individuals who went to school, or the institution, to make sure that they get their things in order and let the people know who walked into the doors of the institution?
Why should it be my responsibility to do all that due diligence and background checks on an institution? Where do I even begin?
Where do I start?
Why do I start to know whether you have issues with any accreditation body or with the Commission for University Education? Where do I begin?
You see,
the job and the onus is on the Commission for University Education, for the university itself, for whatever institution, the college, whoever is offering this, to make sure that they comply. And if they don't, then that's why you have a regulator, that's why you have law enforcement, that's why you have laws. Why should it be that the people who are seeking this higher learning are the ones who, before you enroll in a certain university, in a certain college, or for a certain program, because you can also even go into a certain university, but that particular program has not been accredited by the...
Yes.
So, why should it be my headache?
It's a minefield, isn't it?
Yes.
In Kenya, the Commission on University Education provides you the list of all the universities, private and public, that they have accredited.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think what they should also do in addition to this is provide a list of universities or institutions of learning that claim to be accredited and are not accredited. Because they can, and they would know. You see, why do I say this?
Issue like a buyer beware alert.
Yes, because somebody may actually get, for instance, let's say you apply to start an institution.
Yeah.
There's a process that you go through. Now, you may meet the early processes, but you don't get to the process of accreditation. And yet, you may be claiming you have accreditation, and yet you don't.
Yeah.
You are an institution, you are even licensed, but you do not have the required authorization to offer the qualifications or the courses that you then offer.
Yeah.
You see? Now, if they publish these things and they said that some of these institutions can only offer this, because you go through any small town in this country, there will be some college on top of a shop somewhere offering something or the other.
There are some colleges that offer National Exam Council exams.
See, those don't have a problem. You know what the exams are.
But some of them you don't actually know that they don't offer a National Exam Council exam. Others are supposed to be offering the ones for the accounts.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Others are supposed to be... All those institutions, and it's an institution where, right, so your child, your somebody has cleared fourth form and they're looking for the next thing to do, and so they go and take up this small course here, I'm studying some accounts, something or the other, and you thought that what they're doing is actually accredited. You come to realize later that they're not accredited. Whose job is it to be doing the background?
You see, it's a valid question, but there is a problem here. And this is where now the individual has to make a decision. Huh? You see, at the end of the day, if due diligence is done and there is an issue with that institution, now it may not affect your qualifications because they may have an issue at a time when, put it this way, the issue is irrelevant to your position and to your qualification. But the question is, what if it isn't? What if it isn't? Should you then not take it upon yourself to say, look, it may not be my duty, but it actually is in my interest to ensure that I have done due diligence? Because if due diligence is done and a problem arises, it will affect you.
Okay, so what if you go and you find out actually, all right, because I think about the institution that I went to, and then at some point, they were not able to open up a program for PhD in a particular field, right? You want to pursue it, but then you say, okay, I'm going to hold on a little bit until they finish that process. So finally, they're able to offer course for PhD philosophy in international relations.
Yes.
Finally, that has happened. Then you finish your coursework, you're conferred the degree, right?
Yes.
And then now you're going into whatever, consultancies, you start to apply for work. You do this due diligence that you're talking about.
Yes.
You find out that, hold on a minute, there was actually a kink in the process when they were trying to figure it out. So then I found out. So what? What am I then supposed to do? Am I supposed to go to the university and say, hold on a minute, you guys actually, in this process, you didn't do 1, 2, 3, and it is now impacting badly on me. How do I... it is still the responsibility to then go back to whatever commission, whatever board, to make sure that they've sorted out this themselves. I still am powerless. I still cannot do anything.
Even accessing that information as you're doing that
Where
due
will you even
diligence
find it?
to know whether they have actually completed all the steps that they're required to complete. How will you get that information?
Actually, in this...
It's a painstaking process.
It is. It is a painstaking process. You see, when I talk about... why don't I give myself as an example? Because on matters of education, it's sensitive. Even mentioning an institution by name is sensitive. What I determined to do, because on the surface, it looks like it's something that involves processes, and once you sort out the process, there is no problem. But I made a decision and said, no, until I am certain that process has been cleared and that there are no more issues, I will not use my title. You see, I made that decision. Now, some people may say, but why are you making that decision? I said, but you see, it is I who made that decision to study in the first place. It is I, all these decisions, it is I who made. So I make that decision. It is not a decision that I think I would say, let everybody make that decision. It is up to you. All I'm saying is that I have had cases and I have seen cases reported in our dailies of situations where certain organizations have done due diligence and they've even pointed at specific institutions and specific colleges. And they have said any qualifications from these institutions will not be considered. Now, you're talking about someone who's been working in a place for the last 6, 7 years and they have that job and they've even risen. And then this situation arises. Now, even if we say it is an institution that is to blame, surely the individual's life has already been affected, has it not been?
That's it.
Yes. And usually, if you don't do due diligence, the life will be affected irreversibly. This is the unfortunate thing. And yet, it is a reversible situation.
Remember the issue of JQuat and the cancelled PhDs, right? Where we're talking about 296 PhDs.
Yes.
And it was an issue of investigations revealing glaring anomalies in the processes leading to graduation. Okay? Now, you have registered for this particular PhD program. You have started, you're going about your business as normal, as best as you can. And then you come and realize later, this particular case is okay. The process was not followed diligently. Others, you have gone through all that, and then halfway through, or even at point of completion, you realize that this particular program that you have paid for, that you've gone through in this institution, is not accredited. You've already spent your time.
Your money.
You've spent your money.
You're about to complete.
So what happens? And at what point could you have done that due diligence to know that this particular program that is being offered, universities in this country are offering multiple programs.
Yes.
There's no university that's just offering one program that you can just go to choir and say, okay, so this one, yes. No. Many. Degree, diploma, postgraduate, all those. So at what point do you now go and check whether this one meets all the standards, is actually going to be accredited? If I register with this one, then I'm sure that what I get is going to be legit.
Actually, when you ask it that way, it's almost impossible. Because if we take a case in point of JKUAT, now, what then do you do? I mean, the issue was they are graduating too many PhDs. Really? How many is too many? I thought that's what the university was supposed to do.
But I think what they wanted to, I think now maybe the deeper point was that the potency of the content, the quality of the education that they were getting then is what came into question, because it wasn't possible, quote unquote, for you to be churning out so many PhDs in such a short time.
One supervisor per how many?
So then the question, that was another issue. So then the question came about. The quality of what you're putting out is what came into question here, because it was as though you're just passing people through, a cheese mill.
It's like a degree mill.
Yes, let's just go out like that. Whereas if you want to look at specialized education, a PhD is just that, specialized education. Can you really push it out?
Painstaking takes a long time.
Oh my gosh, yes. Can you really push it out that way? And that is what came under scrutiny. That in terms of the quality, are you actually delivering quality because you want to have more individuals pushed out into society with this specialized education?
So you now, as let's say, you're the one who's actually applied for this PhD program, right? And you are going through it. If, let's say, at some point you realize that, wait, we are too many people dealing with one supervisor. The quality that I'm getting is not good. What do you do?
Beyond make a complaint, I really don't see what you can do. You can complain and say, actually, I don't think I'm getting enough time with this supervisor number one. I don't think that he's pushing, is giving as much attention as he or she can. But beyond a complaint, what are you going to do?
Yeah. You see, where this particular discussion gets interesting is that what we saw at JKUAT becomes an issue when you compare it with what has happened previously and what was common in our universities. Whether you had entered a master's course or a PhD, the likelihood of completing it was minimal. Whatever grant you had been given, would run out before you finish your course. Complaints were varied. You couldn't get your supervisor, you couldn't do the other, but it's like it was a bottleneck. Simply getting a master's degree was a headache at some point. It was almost, my goodness, it was a difficult thing to do. And one got the impression it was being made difficult. PhDs, on the other hand, my goodness, they were rare. Now, they shouldn't be that rare. Why do I say this? The moment the numbers of students in a university increases, it then follows that the numbers of people who actually teach these people also increases. Okay? And if you have many students applying for a particular course, it then follows that there will be more people in that particular discipline who are teaching. So all I'm saying is that the 290 was a large number. However, it doesn't mean that the university could not have...
It's impossible.
Yes. I think you've understood me perfectly. Because if the university expands, because it wasn't a PhD in just one discipline, it was in many disciplines.
Sure.
I'm thinking also by the time that they were saying, let's cancel this, once investigations have revealed, they looked at all that. They looked at the capacity, they looked at the resources being allocated to this particular, and
I would like to assume that they did.
In and out, don't match.
But you see where I'm going with this discussion is part of the quality assurance processes is in understanding. You see, you don't just graduate these people. You state, we have these candidatures, these numbers of people whom we are working on to end up this way. You see? So the questions that were then being asked should have been asked earlier. Because the PhD doesn't take a year. Neither does it take 2 years. Okay, neither does it take 3 years in many cases. Sometimes it takes 5, even 6 years.
So the investigations were revealing very many things, not just on the university itself, but on those that are supposed to.
Yes. The periodical quality assurance ought to have been there to determine that due process is being followed when you have that number of students.
Let's take a break. When we come back out of this break, we'll also be asking you, share your experiences. So there's a whole issue of accreditation and recognition of your academic papers locally and especially those from other countries. How are they being recognized in this country? We've seen even in terms of politicians, cases going to court. Oh, do you have a degree? Oh, where did you get this degree from? Do you know? Where did you graduate?
Did you attend a class or did you not attend a class?
Exactly. Even locally, we are seeing cases where politicians are being questioned. Are you where lakini ulisoma?
Who are your classmates?
I've been around you.
When? 27 after 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Keep it right here. We'll be back shortly.
It's time to answer questions that are worthwhile. The Big Quiz Show is here. Register to play from the comfort of your home by SMSing the word JOIN to 23774. Then watch the live show on KTN every Sunday from 8 p.m. where you could have a chance to win a milli. The fastest and most accurate answers are guaranteed to win. The Big Quiz Show, Sundays at 8 p.m. only on KTN.
We've been all through it, you know. We go to school, study hard, get the much-deserved grades and celebrate our graduation. Then reality hits us. We get to the job market and we simply don't know where to start off. Thankfully, by visiting jobs.standardmedia.co.ke, your next career breakthrough could be a click away. Get the best in career advice, employment opportunities, internships, part-time jobs, CV writing and interview coaching. Give your career the much needed lift on jobs.standardmedia.co.ke.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
In and out of the city today, as you're trying to get to the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, you can't. You'll have to go via Bagathi Way and then out towards Aerodrome Road, or go towards go towards Bagathi Way from Langata Road. So you can't use that stretch then between the Nyeri Stadium roundabout and the Bunyala Road roundabout because it is still closed, at least until the 29th. We'll wait and see if that actually opens up by then. So that's what we're facing now. It looks like folks have adjusted to that quite well. So it's not too crazy. The southern bypass, of course, is an option to get into the city. Not too bad. We looked at traffic coming in and out of Mombasa town and also Nakuru and headed out west into Kisumu. It's not so bad. Most of the country moving along just swimmingly well this morning. Coming off Jogo Road and entering into the city also, not flowing too badly. Industrial area, yes, we will see heavy traffic, at least until traffic hour is over. But for now, we're in the middle of it, guys, and we're going to have to sit through it. Let us know if you run into anything uncomfortable. We can see how we can find an alternate route from what folks are sharing on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
So still rain showers in Nairobi this morning at 17. We will see highs of 23 and lows of 16. A high chance of rain continuing for most parts of today. Rain in Nyeri at 15, highs of 22 and lows of 13. We'll see lows of 14 in Nakuru, where it's sunny at 16. It's sunny in Eldoret at 14, highs of 24. Highs of 27 in Kisumu, where light rain started at 20. Mostly cloudy conditions in Kakamega at 19, highs of 26 and lows of 17. There's a high chance of rain continuing through the day, where it has already started in Mombasa at 26, highs of 31. Also 26 in Malindi. Rain showers in some parts, highs of 31 as well. Heavy thunderstorms continue to rock the skies in Kampala at 19 degrees, highs of 23 and lows of 18. We'll see highs of 28 in Dar es Salaam, where it's light rain right now at 24. 16 degrees and clears in Johannesburg, highs of 27 and lows of 15. We'll see lows of 26, which is what it currently is in Lagos. Clear conditions and a hot day going to highs of 34. We'll see highs of 32 in Kinshasa. It's mostly clear at 24, and that'll be the low for today.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Conversation, the Situation Room. In the room, you have Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, and C.T. Muga, talking about recognition and equation of qualifications by the Commission for University Education and the accreditation bodies. So you acquire your program, degree, diploma, a higher national diploma, postgraduate diploma,
even a certificate,
master's degree, certificate, PhD. you have got to make sure that that is actually an accredited.
But I'm sorry. I'm going to ask. Have you got to though? And when they were giving out this announcement or whatever it is that it was, shedding light on the fact that hold on, these things have not been happening. They should actually be speaking to the institutions that are accredited under them as a body. They should not be speaking to the various degree holders or those pursuant of a degree. They should actually be speaking to the institutions and saying, make sure that you have all your things in order, because essentially what you would be doing if you don't is putting the education lives of these individuals at jeopardy.
Consider for a second something that we see often when the results of students who sit, usually it's for their Form 4 exams, are cancelled. All right? Now, when those exams are cancelled, the impact is immediate. Huh? Now, can you imagine the despondency and the despair that parents fall in? You've waited 4 years for this child to get here, and then the results are cancelled. Who do we blame, and what ought to have been done? Do we blame the parents? Do we blame the school? Do we blame the students? What do we do? Now, I am simply saying that where this particular shoe fits and where it bites, at the end of the day, it is you the wearer, okay? So much as all these details that we're talking about are actually honestly true. However, I think what we are seeing now is something that ought to have been happening from the very beginning. The Commission on University Education and the Kenyan Qualifications Authority ought to have, they're now doing it. This is something that should be done periodically to ensure that these quality assurances exist. So it isn't just a question of, let me put it this way, it is good that it has started. Yes.
There's the issue of the inconvenience. In 2015, there was a story in the news, and 1,500 students of Moi University School of Law were affected because the Council of Legal Education ordered Moi University to close its School of Law for failing to meet requirements to offer the course. A decision that threw 1,500 students into jeopardy. In the letter to the Vice Chancellor, the Council said it ordered the closure after an inspection showed that the university did not have the capacity to offer law courses. Now, and this is not just, so this is one, all right? This is not a small-time backwater university or a new university. It's Moi University, all right? An old and recognized institution. It starts a program and says, this is law. We are starting a law degree program. We are actually starting a school of law. We are going to start offering degrees. Many people go through this program. They graduate. And then at some point, someone comes and says, wait a minute. But you guys... Some of the graduates from this have already gone to the School of Law. They've already been admitted to the bar. And then you come into
some already working
and practicing law. Then you start coming to question this at that particular point. What are you doing?
Actually, the reason why you have these periodical assessments is to determine that the standards are actually being maintained.
Yep.
All right? Now, whether it had been done in the previous years or whether this was now a new set of standards that were being put into place, one isn't certain because we go by what was reported. Now, the Commission on University Education is mandated. This is one of the things it must do so that you ensure that that quality that you speak of is actually maintained. So when you say you graduated from Kenyatta University with a degree in engineering, it is understood it is not any different from any other university in this country that actually offers that degree.
Yep.
That is their job.
Yep.
Now, I do not know whether they had periodically gone to that university, but it appears at the time when they did. This is what often happens. This is what I know. If they think there is an issue, they come with the periodic visits. You are told there is a gap here, there is a problem here, there's an issue here. Thank you, fix it. We will come back after this period of time. And they then come back. An opportunity is given for that rectification. So by the time they make that decision, I am of the view that they have actually asked you to sort out a problem and you have failed to sort it out.
As the institution.
Yes.
Then there should not be any kind of penalty whatsoever on the individuals who went to this institution.
If it's a government institution, what they then tell you is they transfer you. they tell you you can then continue to pursue your education at that. Now, you asked about those who are graduated. If during that particular period when they were studying, the issue had not arisen, why should they be affected?
Exactly. Why should they?
It means that...
Now, here's the issue, though. If by this time this body, which is called what? The Council of Legal Education, has come and determined that this particular university does not meet the requirements to offer this course, it means that there's an issue of the quality.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it means that the graduates have an issue of quality.
Yes.
So
but
what are you doing?
At that point in time, now the quality we're talking about has to do with...
Are you saying that quality has deteriorated?
Yes.
At some point you had good quality and then it deteriorated?
Yes.
Okay. So if we say that initially when we came 5 years ago, let's say it's the number of lecturers that you require, the number of facilities that you required to, and the number of students that you needed per class, all those things that you met.
Yes.
And then later you got greedy and increased the number of students without increasing the number of lecturers. Quality has dropped.
Yes.
So what about now those that have gone through? Now that's what we are saying. Those 1,500 that are affected, what are you saying about the quality that they've received in the last 1 year? If you now transfer them from Moi to University of Nairobi,
not just one, other
others, right?
universities
What
that
are you
offer
saying?
something
So by the
similar.
time you're coming and you're in third year, do we need to reassess your first, second, and third year?
I believe you have asked the $1 million question. And that is a question that could best be answered by people who actually belong to that particular institution that determines these things. Why am I saying this? I can talk generally about what is required, and I can tell you what is required to be done. But when such a decision is made, the consequence of such decisions are also considered. It's not as though they are not considered. They are considered. But as to how, well, the next steps and what and how the students... Because you could ask the question, what if you can't transfer? What if you chose that particular institution
For several reasons.
Yes, and the transfer now would affect you to the point where you may not even be able to continue with your course.
Yeah.
What then do you do then?
Yeah.
Now, these are the problems that people encounter. And there are students who I think were affected by that decision. And some of them may even be listening. This is the opportunity where they can actually call it and say, this is how this thing affected us.
Yep.
Because then it falls back again directly to the institutions whose job it is to ensure that these things don't occur. How did they wait until it got to that position? How did it get to that position?
Have you ever been affected by this, the issue of recognition and equation of your qualifications from whatever institution, whether it was just a college with a certificate or diploma or degree or PhD, master's? Just call us. Let's hear what your experience has been. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. The issue as well of you have gone abroad, you've crossed over the border, you've gone to Uganda and you've registered for this particular course, all right? Let's even say that you went through some certain education, which is not even higher education. You went through secondary education in a certain school across the border, and now you want to come and join a university in Kenya, and that university now starts telling you, know what, we do not know what this is you're holding. Our minimum entry requirement is this, and the other. We recognize KCSE, this grade. We recognize IGCSE. We recognize IB. This thing that you're holding, what is it? And you spent 4 years, in some cases 6 years, in a school studying outside the country, and you're being told, we don't recognize
or
this.
As you say, across the border, and the courses differ. You may have gone even for a medical course, and they ask you, what? No.
Medical.
Where is it exactly, is it? Now, you see, what is even nearer home is you apply for a certain course and you actually qualify in this country in a public university.
Yes.
And you go to look for a job and they ask you, okay, we understand. So what do you expect us to do with this thing exactly? So the question you ask is, why is it being offered in the first place?
Yes.
If it has no relevance.
It has no relevance at all. Let's hear from Mohammed, who's calling in from Isiolo. Mohammed, good morning.
Morning to you, sir.
Ramadan Mubarak, Mohammed.
Ramadan Mubarak. I'm calling, it is a very interesting topic, really. I did technical education also. And currently I'm working with county government, previously national government, but seconded staff. But the challenges we have today is whereby most of this young generation were not guided, mentored by either their parents due to lack of knowledge, or maybe even a professional who's supposed to guide them at the school level, which college they're supposed to join. You can find somebody join a college, go and be given an internal certificate, which is totally, the institutions don't have authority to offer. They are not accredited. And then the same people today employed with the certificate in county institution. And then we have challenge in their performance. That's one. Secondly, my brother joined Technical University of Nairobi, former Nairobi. And then the course is offered by Nairobi University, technology, engineering in technology. After he finished all that course and he finished and graduated, imagine the Kenyan engineers refused to register them, that they are not even recognizing that course which offered by Nairobi University to Technical University. And then there's no promotion, and he cannot be given the position he's supposed to. He works with the Paracetamol, a very big company, which, I want to mention. And then he was denied that chance. And he suffered, and it cost him a lot of money.
So the engineers board does not recognize this particular degree from a recognized university.
Yes, some degree in technology, engineering degree in technology. Offered by Nairobi University to Technical University because it come under them. And then when they come to register, and then the board refused to register. And then the guy suffered for almost 4 years struggling to see if he can make maybe to promotion within the system. So that's why I said, Mr. Mugo, you're right to advise Kenyans. And I really like this program. And it is good also to tell parents that they should also know where they're taking their kids.
But then let me ask you, Mohammed. So this one, you're talking about an institution that is old. It's formerly the Kenya Polytechnic.
Yes.
That is now Technical University. Yes. That's offering a program offered by the University of Nairobi. I mean, what other due diligence, my brother, do you require to do? Surely. Just those two.
One thing, they advertise the course, and you know that this is already a university that is coming under Nairobi University, technicals under them, and then they offer the course. And people paid a lot of money to it, and then at the last minute, somebody somewhere just stay on it and say, no, we can't recognize this because it is challenging in other engineering departments.
So that's what I'm asking, Mohammed. Yes. So in the case of your brother who has gone through what he has gone through, what due diligence could he have done?
Nothing. He went through and asked for these guys, and they told, no, we don't recognize them, period. That's all. Yes.
That's a tough one. Thank you very much, Mohammed.
And these other colleges, institutions in various counties, and maybe there are those national polytechnics which used to given them accredited to offer internal certificates. National polytechnic, that is Nairobi, Malindi, Polytechnic, Mombasa, and Kisumu. The only three. But later on, they added Eldoret, I think so. And then you can find other colleges, other institutions, like technical institutions in other parts of Kenya, offering, and the Ministry of Education, offering internal certificate, which is not recognized, and which they are not authorized to offer.
That's true.
For those maybe who never attained the grade of joining diploma directly for national examination, that is external exam. But internally, apart from those like CPA and other area, which is different from this other exam. Then you find somebody have a certificate from a college in a village somewhere, and then the same certificate is used to employ somebody somewhere because he has a godfather or maybe he has somebody to push through, and they don't even clarify it. And then somebody comes to you in a work environment, then the person cannot even have
They have no idea. You can't differentiate A from B. Thank you very much, Mohammed, for your call.
Now I'm working with a higher institution, in the health institution somewhere. But it's very painful when you find somebody did maybe information and we call it record. Record system in the hospital and cannot even go to computer and click maybe
cannot save file.
Your knowledge.
Asante, Mohammed. Thank you, Mohammed. Let's hear from Jane in Kisii. Jane, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm fine. I've just gotten your number and I wanted to share some concern with you if you can help. I had a student who was studying Faculty of Education in Kenyatta University. He did his 3-year course, then went for teaching practice at some school in Yala. Then when they went back to finish their 4th year, they were told that their results to let them go to the next year were missing. Then unfortunately the students, there were over 300 students and there was a strike. Then they were sent home that they'll be recalled. Up to now, they've not been recalled. So
how long have they been out of school?
From 2019, end of it, when they were from the teaching practice, the corona year up till now, and they've not been recalled. So when I inquired from somebody from the university, they were saying that that's a Senate issue, and they'll just have to wait.
Okay. So the issue
so I don't
here
know how
is
it will work.
the results from the 3rd year have somehow mysteriously disappeared, and so now
from the university, so they can't arrest the situation. And if something like that happens, the students strike. So they striked and they were sent home that they'll be recalled. Up till now, the students' fate are not yet known.
Results don't just disappear. It is, yes.
Especially for many.
For many at one time.
Yes. You can't misplace 300 results. I think when you are advised that the Senate is the right, I think, yes, indeed. But this is something the Senate can resolve, but this is something that the ministry should also be asked to investigate. Because you cannot just stay out of college indefinitely. If they were suspended, if they were expelled, whatever the decision that was made, they should be informed so that they can know what other steps to take. But they're in limbo. And yes, this is something you should pursue further. That's the best advice we can give you.
Then how in which place now that it's the university where I went, and they told me that we'll wait for an SMS and students are just at home.
No.
Keep asking.
And
it's not just the university. They will push you to the Senate, and they're not pushing you to a body that doesn't function. Actually, it is a Senate decision. Yes, and if you can find a way of writing to the Senate, communicating with the Senate, then that is what you need to do. Why do you think we have members of parliament, my dear? It is such issues that you give the member of parliament to push.
That need to be addressed.
Yes, because that is one of the things that they can do.
So now me, I'm a parent and I'm ignorant of where to start, what to do.
Stress your member of parliament.
Okay.
And the student as well. This is a 3rd year student. This is somebody who should also be able to take up this mantle and follow up for themselves. They should be able to at least do something and do the running around and come back with a solution. I mean, we're not talking about somebody who's just joined first year. There's somebody who's been to 3rd year, has even gone to teaching practice, was coming back for the 4th year to complete. This is somebody who should also tell them also, afanye kazi yake pia.
Be active.
Thank you very much, Jane, for your call. We'll be picking some more calls when we come out of this break. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Time for a break on KTN Home at 9 minutes to 8 o'clock. Reminding you about jobs.standardmedia.co.ke, a portal by the Standard Group, jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. Log on there and you find all the jobs that have been posted. These are authenticated jobs, all right? They're on a portal that is actually one that you can rely on. This is the Standard Media Group, so jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. Some of the latest jobs: a trainer for emergencies and resilient livelihoods by ActionAid, 1 day to apply. Communications and outreach officer for African Center for Technology Studies. This is a 1 day to apply as well. Trainer for women rights, 1 day to apply. Trainer for global contact solutions designer, front-end developer, office assistant, back-end developer, senior iOS developer, a professor or associate professor or senior lecturer or counseling psychology, clinical psychology. There's African Nazarene University is looking for you. Senior lecturer, civil engineering, all those. Jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. We'll be back shortly.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
It's time to answer questions that are worthwhile. The Big Quiz Show is here. Register to play from the comfort of your home by SMSing the word JOIN to 23774. Then watch the live show on KTN every Sunday from 8 p.m. where you could have a chance to win a mealie. The fastest and most accurate answers are guaranteed to win. The Big Quiz Show, Sundays at 8 p.m. only on KTN.
We've been all through it, you know. We go to school, study hard, get the much-deserved grades and celebrate our graduation. Then reality hits us. We get to the job market and we simply don't know where to start off. Thankfully, by visiting jobs.standardmedia.co.ke, your next career breakthrough could be a click away. Get the best in career advice, employment opportunities, internships, part-time jobs, CV writing and interview coaching. Give your career the much needed lift on jobs.standardmedia.co.ke.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Right, 6 to 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's go back to the phone line. Sebastian in Thika, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Welcome to the Situation Room.
Oh, thank you. So there's also this big problem now in biomedical sciences. Now, these are like people who have studied about the viruses, bacteria, like people who could really right now be explaining about these viruses. But then you study like biochemistry and all these other courses. But after you graduate, now there's another body. I think it's something Kenya Medical Laboratory. Now they again impose another certificate for you to work in any of these research institutions. They advertise all jobs using. They require you to get another certificate before you can apply, and that certificate again requires you to take additional courses back at the university. So every time you apply for a job, you are automatically disqualified just on the basis of not having these other certificates, which was not there when you started studying. So you're finding a bunch of people who could be doing research in medicine, on malaria, on the virus, opting out, just choosing to go and do other things. Yeah.
There's an issue here that perhaps needs to be addressed, and that is understanding what these courses are. You see, when you're talking about lab technology as it's offered at the Kenya Medical institutions, people who go for those courses are required to actually sit for those exams, that by the time they graduate, they already have that certification that is required by that board that looks after lab technologists. That's what they're called. If you then study biomedical sciences have a greater relevance when it comes to research. Now, this isn't an odd requirement. You will study law, but if you don't go to what we call law school or the Kenya School of Law, you will not be licensed to actually practice. If you look at any professional studies, there will be a professional body that requires you to sit for a certain exam before you can be certified to practice with them. It is a basic requirement for any professional course. It is tedious, it is expensive, but it is something that is considered mandatory. And perhaps where the problem lies is in the advice that people are given when they're choosing the courses as to what it is that course would lead to. Because the assumption is if you study biomedical lab sciences that you can do the same thing as a lab technologist. By and large, it is true, yes. But you will find that there are certain units that perhaps aren't covered in one course and covered in another. It's just the reality of those two courses.
Can I? So the problem is the body only recognizes units for those who are doing medical laboratory science.
Yes.
Across Kenya universities. So those ones who are doing biochemistry, genomics, and all these other courses are normally left out.
Okay.
They're not being allowed to take those units, or they're not being given those units at the university. So that is what is happening.
Yes,
so
it
you're
is
not
true.
giving these units at the university, and after you graduate, when you're looking for a job, you're now being told you had to do those units, while the university was saying it's not a must for you to do.
I think that's a big issue because, I mean, at what point does the institution align with the certifying body? Because you're offering this particular unit and then you clearly know that this unit is not going to be examinable, this unit is not going to be recognized.
It is recognized if all you're doing is conducting your work in research. But the problem arises that if you work in a laboratory and you don't have that certification by that body, even if you will have a problem with them. So it is the body that manages lab technologies and lab-related work that now require. And it is clear that the law allows them to push this particular agenda.
When they push the agenda is the problem. And they should align. There should be congruence between these professional bodies and the institutions. There must be.
Same thing with the engineering board, we're being told by Mohammed. So somebody has actually gone through, there's a whole unit, a whole program that has been offered and been rolled out by university. But the engineering board does not recognize that.
Yeah, and they'll only come and say it after the fact. They'll come and say it later when you present yourself for candidacy, and they'll tell you, well, this is what we actually were looking for, and you don't have it. What are you going to do? Roll back for 5-6 years?
Yeah, you can. Let's take a break. Let's see what's happening on the roads, and then we continue the conversations. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. In the next hour, we also want to talk about what's happening in our health facilities around the country. The issue of affording healthcare, the issue of accessing healthcare, and the issue as well of the number of healthcare facilities that we have in the country. Are they enough? Can we afford? Are they offering the best at the best price? Good morning. It's 8 o'clock.
Sugar and spice.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, so what are we looking at
Traffic.
this morning? Still some traffic on Mombasa Road this morning, and that's outbound. You can turn off. So different points along Mombasa Road where you can turn off. You can turn off at the Southern Bypass. You go a little bit further down, and then you turn off at Langata Road, which you're going to have to do right now, and then go towards Bagazi Way or go towards Aerodrome Road for you to get into the city. So those are the options that you have available. Coming into Mombasa Road at Bunyala Roundabout, you can go down Bunyala Road, join with Baricha Road, onto Workshop Road, and then out onto Mombasa Road. You can do that. Those are the options that are available. Eastern Bypass is also looking good for you if you get off there at Cabanas and then on towards the interchange. Okay, Likoni interchange also looks jam-packed this morning, but it's not too bad. It's doable, guys, at least for this morning. Visibility is low coming from around Kikuyu, Westlands, in that general area. Red Hill Bypass will get you into the city a lot quicker. Apart from that, it doesn't look like anything too neck-breaking, at least not at this point. We'll keep an eye on things and see how they pan out during traffic hour. Talk to us should you need to help us out, and we can help you too. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
2 minutes after 8. Very good morning to you. Ramadan Mubarak to our brothers and sisters who are beginning the month of Ramadan today. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Into the third hour of the show, we're also live on KTN Home until the top of the hour, and the conversation continues on SpiceFM and online as well. CT, today's proverb, tafadhali.
An orphaned calf licks its own back.
An orphaned calf licks its own back.
Yes.
Okay. That sounds good.
Now it sounds good. Before you were feeling all Bambi for us.
I'm still feeling Oishe, but sounds like there's a big lesson here. There's a very big lesson to take, right? So let's talk about a story that appeared yesterday in a feature story in the Standard. And this is with regards to hospitalization, seeking care in hospital, and then what happens to you if you do not have money to pay the bills. Yes?
Yes. So it gave the particular story of a gentleman called Obonyo. And Obonyo he was in hospital for over a year. And his treatment occurred and the bills became quite high and he was unable to pay. So he would have been discharged from what we are seeing after, a particular point in time. But because of the fact that he could not pay, he stayed in hospital for a year plus. And the majority of that time he was actually well. But because he and his family rather were not able to meet or pay this bill, the hospital refused to let him go. And it became a long drawn out battle between himself and the hospital, and the Kenya National Human Rights Commission got involved, NHIF got involved, this, that, the other thing. And then finally, after this whole back and forth circus of events, he was finally let go, and he was giving his story about how this happened and what it was like literally living in hospital and not being allowed to go because of this bill that he had, which was in the millions. And thereafter, other people gave their accounts of how they had to stay in hospital. Somebody's bill at 400,000 and she was not able to pay. Neither was her family able to meet the bill. This is a secondary school student. And by the time they would have been released for hospital, her bill had reached something like 2.3 million shillings. And it was just occurring on a daily basis, because, you're in bed and you have, room and board in hospital and they're feeding you. And there were many, many stories. And I'm sure if you stuck your finger in the air, there are many people who would land in terms of those who suffer the same fate. People who've gone to hospital for a minor issue, people who've gone into hospital for a major issue, and then have not been able to pay their bills and have been kept in hospital. So it actually does sound like you're staying in hospital and you're being punished for not being able to pay your bill. And we're looking at cases that are authentic. And yes, indeed, we're looking at cases that are not. But the truth of the matter is that people who are not able, they're not lying about their situation. They're not able to pay a bill. And rather than find some kind of consensus, what has happened in a majority of cases is to keep these folks in hospital. And the bill continues to pile up and the bill continues to build. And hospital authorities are, none the pacifier when it comes to this. They want their dime. They want their dime. They paid. They took care of you when you were unwell, and they want to be paid for the services that were rendered. But then what happens is the question now for folk who are not able to pay. And we're not talking about don't want to pay. They're not able to pay.
If you think about it from the business of the people who are running this health facility. So you set up a health facility. Yes, you want to provide a service, but also you've got costs to run and you've got shareholders to report to. So what do you do when you're thinking about that? You see hospitals where they ask you, all right, first of all, before we admit you, let's ask whether you actually are creditworthy. Are you going to be able to pay for the services that we're going to be able to offer you here? Number one. Number two, even when you're still there, they keep coming to ask you, all right, so is your insurance in order? We have checked with your insurance and they have approved or they have not approved up to a certain degree. Your NHIF has said, yes, they have approved up to this particular point, and the rest you're going to have to pay out of pocket. Are you going to be able to afford? So all these are conversations that are happening as you are still trying to battle a disease that took you to hospital in the first place. Is this a bad thing for a hospital administrator to do? Truth be told, yes, they're offering a service, but they are also running a business facility. It's an enterprise.
And if they do not abide by some of the basic business requirements, they will fold and close, which means now they are the ones who will be at a loss. And yet they'll be at a loss because they've been providing services for which they cannot realize what they expected to realize. You see, we look at health facilities as health facilities and forget that it is a business. And as a business, they actually need to stay afloat. It's not really that complicated. So, how do you balance it? Staying afloat and ensuring that the patients who come to hospital are also treated equitably. Yes.
But then there's also now the other issue of at what point do you look at the kind of service that you're offering vis-a-vis the community that you're serving? If you're in a certain area and you can clearly notice that most of the people who come here are not able to afford this service, what do you do? At what point do you make that decision to align yourself with the community you're serving? 1. 2, and this one is a pet peeve of mine, is when it comes to emergency services. So somebody is knocked down on Mombasa Road, an accident, and you rush them to a private facility, nearest private facility. And the first thing that they say, okay, is, wait, this person, with the way we're looking at them, they require some sort of hospitalized care. They need to go straight into ICU or HDU. Now, put a deposit here of 600,000 shillings. And that is at 8 p.m. on a Saturday. These are things that have been reported by very many people. I'm sure if we opened up the phone lines right now, people will tell you, in cases where they have taken a loved one or a stranger to a facility in the case of an emergency, and the first thing they were asked is, who's going to pay the bill? Do they have insurance? Can you put a deposit? How do you balance that? That's not about business. That's now being
extortionist.
Yes. I think the conditions under what or how some of these things happen also is important to note. Let's look at the details of this particular subject of this story yesterday and how it was carried, right? Let me just give you some of the details so they can understand. So this gentleman, which I mean, his name is Obonyo, right? He was unable to raise the 492,000 shillings bill upon his discharge in April last year, and he was in the ICU for 3 days from April 12th, right? And then he was to be discharged on the 19th of April. The bill by the 19th was this 492,000. Couldn't pay. So he was removed from the ICU, put in the normal ward. After being removed from the normal ward, he was then removed from the normal ward and put in an isolated room. And that was his home for a year.
So, okay, did he first get better? Like he...
Yes, he was to be discharged.
He needed to be discharged from ICU?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so he was to be discharged.
So he wasn't kicked out of ICU?
No, he was removed from ICU, put in the normal ward, and he was then to be discharged. He was well, but he was not able to pay. He was then removed from the normal ward and put in this room, right? Now... Some
swanky accommodation, basically, private room, right?
You would think. So what happens after this is that he stays in this room for a year and he's locked. It's not like you can walk about and have a fancy time, right? And he says it triggered a depression in him that escalated his blood pressure. He was not discharged even after presenting a title deed as surety. He remained locked despite pleading for a day off to attend the burial of his firstborn son, who had died in October. So he says that the life here was miserable, if you're asking about the swanky accommodation. Meals were not standard. A cup of tea and 2 slices of bread at 6 a.m. Missing lunch was the norm. Patients with pending bills are served after those in the wards. Meals were of low nutrition, according to him. Hot water for soup and a 300 ml bottled water for 24 hours is what he talked about. The earliest time that he received lunch was 4:30. Meals were then mostly mixed with water. He says poverty is bad. It's tough being locked up in a hospital because of failing to raise medical bills. It is more than being a prisoner despite undergoing the healing process. So he was exposed to sunshine when he could from 10 to 2 p.m.
So he was basically in detention.
Yes, he was in
Long
jail.
and short of it.
Because
is
he came
that-
out to the sun for 3 hours in a day and then gone back to his isolated room. He had to stay in the room. There was a guard at his door. And
So the hospital basically has deployed a lot of resources to recover the money that you owe them. They have deployed a guard at your door. They are serving you meals. There is a bed. There is a room. All this is facility that they've basically just set aside for you so that they can recover money from you.
right, because
as you
if they don't
continue
know,
accruing a bill.
they got to keep you alive in order for you to pay the bill, right? Because they don't it's tantamount to killing you.
You actually question such kind of decisions. But let's bring in somebody who can help us understand some of these things and how hospitals then think, how administrators of hospitals think. Dr. Abdi Mohammed is the chairperson of the Kenya Private Hospitals Association. Dr. Mohammed, good morning.
Good morning, Eric, and good morning, Siti and
Ndu.
Undu.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Harry.
I was trying to say with
Yes.
You're trying to bring it out, right?
yes.
Dr. Mohammed, Ramadan Mubarak.
Thank you.
Now,
Thank you very much.
you know, you've heard how we are introducing this story, and I'm sure you read the story that was featured in the Health and Science pullout of the Standard yesterday. When hospitals turn into detention camps, people are unable to pay their bills, patients are being locked up in poor conditions, adding to their misery. What would be the thinking behind this?
Unfortunately, each facility will have its own way of doing things. So some facilities will come up with strategies on not letting you in from the beginning, while others will find a way of either transferring you out in the middle, while others will be left hanging, not knowing what to do, and decide that at that point, whoever is in charge will make that call. Unfortunately, it's not uniform. So it's, as you have said, the hospital have spent more money keeping you than you left, you had before when you were discharged. So it's the personal decisions made by the facility. But I would say sometimes people or hospitals are forced to do certain things because the patient or the relatives have not come to the table to agree on how to go about the paying of the bill. That's the most unfortunate thing. You will find such a patient will be brought, the relatives will be visiting. When the time comes for discharge, everyone disappears.
Yep.
Then you are wondering now, where were all these people who are coming to see this person? They just left the person to you. You call them, they are all busy. But when you are treating, they were demanding you do certain things, even more advanced.
The best care you could give.
Do what you need to do, Doctor. We'll take care of it.
Exactly. Unfortunately, that's what happened.
Is there an overarching principle over all of this where you say, regardless of what the situation may be, is there whether it be silent agreement that amongst hospitals that, look, if it gets to this point, this is what we will do? Because the number of cases, I mean, like we said, if we just said right now, everybody tell us your experience about somebody who's been stuck in hospital and has not been allowed to go because of pending bills, everybody would have a story. So are you saying essentially that there can be an agreement between facility and patients and their families if they just talked about it? Is that what you're saying? Across board?
Yes. That's why I told you it's individual facility decisions. But what some facilities do is they don't let you in to begin with. That's one of their strategies of reducing their burden of negotiating with people. So at the beginning, they will tell you no deposit. Without deposit, you are not going in. And if you go in and you finish your deposit, you are told to top up. When they see you are not topping up, they transfer you out because they have more demand for those beds, for people who are willing to pay. So why would they keep you and you are unable to pay? But now comes in the smaller facilities. They don't have that capacity. So what do? They just keep you, thinking that somehow, somewhat, people will come through for you. There will be harambes or things like that. There will be some sort of deposit here and there. Someone will go for a loan somewhere. So they continue treating you, knowing that they hope for the best. The same way that they are hoping that you will get well is the same way that they hope your people or you will find a way of compensating them for the services that they have offered. So, but sometimes things don't go as you had hoped for.
There's something that I'm finding a little disturbing here. When someone is admitted to a hospital, it isn't as though it's something recreational. It's because they have a need. So at what point does the Hippocratic oath that medical individuals like yourself take and their commercial demands, at what point do they meet? Because we understand it's a business that's being run. We also understand that there is the need to save and to ensure that human life is given the care it requires. How and where do you balance this?
Individually, as a clinician, I can forfeit my fee. But the question is, I want to use gloves to look after you. I want to test you. I want to give you medicine. But I don't own those things. Do you want me to go into my pocket to pay on your behalf? I will do the skills and tell you, okay, here I am. I'm a doctor, Hippocratic oath. I will give you my knowledge. Give me the things to work with. So the question becomes, who takes care of the cost of those things that are needed to deliver this service? Because by looking at you, it's not enough for you to get well. By just saying that this is the problem and this is the management, word of mouth is not enough. I need things. So where do I get those things from and who pays for those things?
I understand what you're saying, and you have responded really very well. But let me take the discussion a little further. By the time people come to a private hospital, there is a reason why, and they feel that they might get better service than they would in a public hospital. So the question is this: is it really true that the services you'll get in a private hospital are of necessity better than the services you'll get in a public hospital?
I wouldn't say it's true. What people look at is the issue of turnaround time, conveniences, availability of certain things which might not be available in public facilities. But I can assure you there are some public facilities that do way better services than the private sector. So it's not uniform. But one thing that you need to realize is in this country, 50% of healthcare is provided by the private sector, especially hospitals, clinics. So by the time you have 50% of hospitals and clinics in the private hands or in mission hospitals, then you realize there was a demand. So sometimes it's not you are going to get better service, it's because the public facility is full, or it's very far from you, or you feel you don't want to share a bed or the hygiene or whatever it is that you feel you are not comfortable. So you opt for the private sector where you think I can actually pay something for these extra things that I need. But in terms of qualification of doctors who are in public and private, you will find very superior doctors in the public sector. And majority of the senior doctors are mainly in public sector, despite them practicing in the private sector as well.
At 21 minutes after 8, we're having a conversation with Dr. Abdi Mohammed. He is the founder and co-founder and CEO of London Hospitals, but also he is the national chairman of the Kenya Private Hospitals Association, talking about when hospitals turn to detention camps. And after this break, we'd like to hear from you. Maybe your personal experiences with a private or public hospital where maybe somebody was actually detained for a while because of being unable to pay the hospital charges. And also in some cases, we hear Dr. Mohammed saying there are hospitals that will say, you know, one of our ways of dealing with that risk of not getting paid is we demand for deposit at the onset, at the point of admission. Is it good practice? Is it not? Does it make sense because you're running a business? Does it make sense because you're actually treating a human being at a point of dire need? 22 minutes after 8, as we take this break, let's remind you about this challenge. Now that your kids are at home on holiday, what are they doing? Register them on the generationnextchallenge.com. That's generationnextchallenge.com. It's a portal that allows the children to basically use their math and computational skills to participate in challenges, and some of the features of this particular challenge: earning polycoins as they learn. Polycoins measure each student's personalized learning journey as they progress through the challenge. Students can also upgrade to premium in the next challenge by earning 5,000 polycoins. Another thing is that they earn certificates. Challenge XP unlocks badges in math, CS, robotics. Certificates show each student's achievements in earning these badges. And then also they are able to then earn scholarships and to participate in a global challenge. This is a fun and easy thing for your kids to do. Just log on to generationnextchallenge.com and register your child. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial star 550 star 1 hash to read the standard e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line, and stay up to date for a reliable source with over 100 years of experience with no additional data charges.
You better be ready. Every Friday at 7:30 p.m. only on KTN Home. It's the Shining Stars TV show moment. Get ready to be inspired. Get ready to be part of an exciting journey of discovery and learning with talented children.
Held me down, but I got up. Get ready, 'cause I had enough.
Get ready to be entertained by super amazing young talent. Because hii ni yetu, from our own talented stars, hosted by #1 TV host, Sleepy David. Shining Stars TV show, every Friday, 7:30 p.m. only on KTN Home. Be part of the journey.
Spice FM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress.
The weather with Spice FM.
All right, so still looking at overcast situations in Nairobi. Rain showers in some parts at 18. We'll see highs of 23 and lows of 16. It's raining in Nyeri at 16, highs of 22, lows of 13. We'll see highs of 25 in Nakuru. Light rain at 17 this morning. It's sunny in Eldoret at 17, highs of 24 and lows of 14. Partly sunny conditions in Kisumu at 21, highs of 27 and lows of 19. Kakamega is partly sunny at 20, highs of 26 and lows of 17. Light rain in Mombasa at 24, highs of 31 and and lows of 25. Rain showers in Malindi at 27, highs of 31 and lows of 26. Still heavy thunderstorms in Kampala, 19 degrees, highs of 23 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam, light rain at 25, highs of 28 and lows of 24. Sunny conditions in Joburg at 17, highs of 27. Mostly clear conditions at 26 in Lagos, highs of 34 and lows of 26. And it's sunny in Kinshasa, slight chance of rain later, highs of 32 and lows of 24.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
So, the newly completed road that heads out towards the southern bypass, and that's the ICD, is actually helping decongest Mombasa Road. So it's not so bad today. There are folks who are asking, right, so there's no U-turn right there at South Sea. You can go into South Sea and then come out around Nairobi West if you're on Mombasa Road today. So that's getting past that particular area. So looking really good on Mombasa Road today. Outbound, we're not having too much of an issue, especially since a lot of folks realize you can't use it right there at the Nyeri Stadium roundabouts. Coming into the CBD from other parts of the city, it doesn't look too bad. Outbound also, it looks good. Thika Road has been behaving. My goodness, it's the star this week. Not an issue here. In and out in record time, it's great. Hopefully it continues this way. Kiambu Road also is falling in line. Let's keep an eye on how it looks in a short while. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
29 minutes after 8, Kenya's biggest conversation continues. In the room, you have CT Muga, Nduoko, Eric Latif joining us for this conversation this hour. In his own home hot seat is Dr. Abdi Mohammed, the national chairman of the Kenya Private Hospitals Association. When hospitals turn into detention camps, some questions are already coming in on social media, Dr. One is saying, really, doctor, that there are some private hospitals that will say, okay, one way of us dealing with the risk is demanding that deposit at the point of admission. And if you run out of the money that you had already deposited, you're told either top up or ship out. At that point, is that really fair? Should that even be allowed to happen?
You see, I just reported what happened.
Yes.
So whether it's legal or illegal, it's not for me to answer. But I'm just telling you, different hospitals have used different strategies on how they want to handle this issue. So as I've told you, even now, KUTRH, Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital, they wouldn't admit you without a deposit, and that's a public hospital. Go to even Kenyatta, KNH, in some instances, you will not be admitted unless you pay deposit, especially if you are doing electives or you have an insurance, which is NHIS. So it's just a way of making sure that that the bill will be catered for. But the question that we need as Kenyans to ask ourselves is, how do we want to pay for healthcare? And I can categorically tell you that paying out of pocket is impossible, even for the wealthiest, because the consumption is too high. So what you need is, what are the alternatives? We have to find a model of insurance that works, or public hospitals that are functional. And even in public hospitals, they need to have a way of being earning a revenue, or a way of maintaining what they have, unless they can get funding properly from Treasury. And that means more is allocated to the health sector. Those are the conversations that we need to discuss and say, okay, how do we get everyone on board on a health insurance? Because that's the only way. You need to pay for the sick, to be paid by the ones who are healthy. And the consumption is highest on the extremes, elderly and children. But the middle, who are supposed healthy and working, are the ones who need to be taking insurances. But they are the ones who say, I rarely fall sick, why do I need insurance? Without understanding that they are investing in their future as well.
Dr. Mohammed, do I understand you to be saying that if indeed something like the universal healthcare system that has been much talked about was actually implemented and was working, that would it possibly ease this situation that we're talking about?
Yes, definitely. I can give you an example.
Yes.
Dialysis. Before NHIF paid for, and before these medical equipment leasing put dialysis across the country, there were very few Kenyans who could afford to go to the private sector. The majority used to go to Kenyatta Hospital. Some used to even stay in Kibera, in other slums, because they came from other counties, they have no relatives, and they can't afford. The cost of doing dialysis used to be almost 100,000 a month. So how many families in Kenya have that cash readily available every month? And this is not something that you say, we'll do it for 1 month and then we are taking a break. It goes with the patient. There's no break. So you have to do it continuously. Then NHIF came and said, okay, pay 500 shilling and we'll pay for you your dialysis throughout the year. 6,000 shilling and you are covered. So, and it's now available almost in every county. There's a dialysis center you will find. The hospital or whoever is providing the service is happy because the NHIF is going to pay. You, as a patient, you are happy because you have only paid 6,000 shilling and you get your service within near your home. You don't have to travel and live in other places. So that's what money put together universally can do.
Okay. Now, it sounds great. It really does, Dr. because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, hold on a minute. We know that NHIF is 500 shillings a month, and I can see you smiling because you know what my next question is going to be. It sounds great. 6,000 shillings a year, and then I don't have to even worry, and then NHIF is going to pay for everything that I need. I could be in hospital, and my bill comes to 400,000 shillings, right? And we have seen that if I had just been paying this 500 shillings per month, it's very possible that NHIF would cover the bulk of this medical bill that I have. So then my question becomes, why then do we not have people actually paying for NHIF? What is the problem? Or why don't we have more people on this canvas?
It's mainly, as I have told you, lack of understanding. And the majority of the people, you see, NHIF is not mandatory. So the majority of the people are self-employed in somehow, whether they are doing a hustle or a business or juakali. There is something that they are doing on their own. There is no one who is employing them, giving them a salary at the end. Because if you're employed, it's deducted automatically and no one asks you, and it's not 500. It's prorated to your salary.
Right.
It goes from 500 to 1,700 based on the 1,700 based on your salary. So the challenge is, as I have told you, is someone feels that they are invincible. You are young. The last time you even bought a Panadol was, I don't know, 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So you ask yourself, why would I pay 500 shillings? Or you don't understand the benefits and the mechanism of how this financing works. That you don't realize that when you take it for your parents are the ones who will benefit more. More than you. But with time, you will also benefit because, as you know, with health, you can never be sure when you will be unwell, unfortunately. You don't know when you will be in an accident. You don't know when something else will happen to you. We didn't know COVID will come, unfortunately. So that's how health is. One day you are fine, the next day your health just deteriorates. That unpredictability. And that's why we are saying it's better if people pool resources together. That's the only way you will be able to sustain health bills. Otherwise, we will have the same challenge of hospital bills being unpaid, hospitals looking for ways of recovering. Unfortunately, that's the reality of trying to pay out of pocket.
As we speak about this, and it's very, very true that, the issue of universal health care and finding a better scheme where everybody can then contribute, or as many people as possible can contribute, so that it takes care of our health, it's a good thing. Let's bring the conversation, though, mixing the same with what you then get at a private hospital or even at a public hospital in terms of how much it's going to cost. When we've had a conversation with the CEO of NHIF a number of times, he's told us one of the biggest challenges that the NHIF faces is fraud. And this is basically just leakage of a lot of money. And this is highly propagated in private hospitals, where you have basically gone into a private hospital and this is what you're supposed to be getting treated for, but somehow the bills are inflated. People have always complained, and many people have complained about going to hospital and finding inflated bills. Is there need or a justification for that conversation about regulating how much each service or each product should cost, even in a private or a public facility?
That would be great, and I don't think there is anyone who will say no to. But as you are aware, there are inputs for every procedure or things that will be done in a hospital. So if you come and the medication is not regulated, then I will not be able to come up with a price unless and until we do a costing for all the procedures and say this procedure for this kind of drugs, this is the amount. And unfortunately, you will find for the same treatment, there are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different types of drugs. The same drug, but different brands, different costs. So the question is, which one do I use? Which one do I not use? So as for fraud, yes, it's true. There are some private hospitals, and it's world over. It's not something that's unique to Kenya. It's just the percentages that differ in every country. So the question is, can that fraud happen without the knowledge of NHIF staff? No. Are there people whose sole purpose is to open those facilities to defraud NHIF? Yes. So that is where we are, unfortunately. So because in every market, you will find crooks who just show up and realize, I can do some business with NHIF. I have a cousin who works for NHIF, and this is how we are going to do. And they will do it, unfortunately, because they are colluding. So it's NHIF and the private sector to come up with ways of reducing that. Because I can totally tell you, nowhere in the world has medical fraud been at 0%. It's almost impossible.
But
so it's just to find what's acceptable, how low or how can you reduce by putting measures in place, biometric messages to the patient, to the doctor, just steps that you can take to reduce the fraud as much as possible. Yes.
But there's something for you as an association. I'm sure one of the things that you say as an association is that, one, you are very good at lobbying. So collectively, you have a lobbying voice. Collectively, you advocate for things that would go for the betterment of the private facilities. There's also the issue of self-regulation.
But it's an association. It's voluntary. So you think someone who wants to participate in fraudulent activities wants to participate in associations and lobby and be on the right path?
I'm
No.
sure not.
They
But
will-
that's where now
they will be lone rangers, and they will continue doing their thing in cahoots with whoever they are working with.
Surely, Dr. Mohammed. Now, those law-abiding members of the association, can you, as a collective voice, call out those that are not doing things the right way? Report them to the board, report them to the authorities, caution the members of the public without even mentioning a name, but basically just describing what is happening and what to look out for in a facility that is openly and outrightly either defrauding its customers or defrauding the NHIF.
If we know, we would, but unfortunately, there are 5,000 facilities. Now, where do you start? looking who is defrauding and who is, and do we even have that capacity to investigate and find out who is participating in these things? Our members, yes, we can call them out. But those who are not our members, now, unfortunately, it's difficult. It's NHIF to find a mechanism of surveillance, of strengthening its internal processes and finding out what's happening or which facility is. Because there are trends you can easily pick. Like you will find a facility is in a remote area where there are very few people. But the kind of invoices that they are giving you is ridiculous. So you need an internal process within NHIF intelligent enough to pick those things and say, this area and this facility, or have people from NHIF who will go and do surveillance and find out, are these people really serving who they are saying they are serving? Or are these fraudulent claims? And now if you have a biometric, hopefully that will even reduce, because it will mean the person whose card is being used to defraud has to come to the facility and put their fingerprints.
I want to move away from this discussion of NHIF and come back to doctors. Doctors have often been accused that when it comes to self-regulation, they will huddle together and protect each other. And that even the bodies that the doctors belong to that are supposed to help regulate the behavior and the conduct will do the same thing. They will huddle together and protect their own. And any sanction that would be expected will be long awaited. It's not something that comes easily. Would you say this accusation has any merit, Dr. Mohammed?
I don't think it has merit, because the people who, when you do self-regulation, you have an expert in the same field. I can tell you, if you are told today, you investigate, and you are not a professional, a colleague in that field, or an expert, you don't have expertise in that field. If the doctor keeps on telling you, I have done X, Y, Z, and that's how it should be done, are you able to question the doctor? No. So every case will become based on your argument against his. So the question becomes between you, who is the expert? So it's always...
let me ask the question. An expert in what? In medicine, or in an expert in me and my condition?
In medicine. Like if he tells you, I have done as per the required standards.
Yes.
Acceptable.
Yes.
This is what I have done, this is what I have done, this is how I have done the operation, this is what I have done. And then he tells you that they accepted the method of doing this thing. But you feel that that was wrongly done. So you go to a regulator that has professionals. So the professionals in that field will question that doctor based on what he has done. And if he has done the wrong thing, they will call him out. And the punishments are stipulated in the act, in each act. So in each act, it has how or what are those punishments when someone is found guilty of doing the wrong thing.
Daktari, I like what you're saying, and it's music to my ears. How often does it actually happen?
Throughout the year. If you go to all the regulators, they will give you people who have been registered, they will give you people who have been admonished, they will give you lists of people who have been told to go and retrain, they will give you people who have been told to go back and work under supervision. There are all those options for regulators on what to do when they found that their member was culpable of wrongdoing. And if you ask them, they will give you the data and they will tell you. And as I always say, it's better that person is held accountable by a fellow colleague.
Okay. Now, looking at, again, like when we said we come back to these many stories, and what would you think the solution would be now that we are saying so many people present themselves to hospital, somewhere along the line, they're unable to pay these bills because it is clearly a problem that, if we're not careful, could actually reach, worrying proportions. What would the solution be? Don't bring your kin to hospital. Don't come if you're not prepared. You never know what somebody had in mind by the time they're bringing them to hospital. What do you think the solution to this is?
So the solution, in my opinion, is, as I have told you, is our financing of health is what we need to work on. I have told you it's unsustainable and impossible to pay out of pocket. For the simple reason, because of the high cost of healthcare, it's impossible to sustain, and there's no one who have that kind of cash lying idle. So that's one. Number two, there's the issue of emergency care. That is enshrined in the Constitution and the Health Act, and there was supposed to be a fund for that emergency treatment. But unfortunately, it has never been set up in Treasury. It's still hanging as well. It has not been implemented. So that's also another solution for emergencies. But for generally, I would say let everyone, at the minimum, have an HIS card. At the minimum, 500 shillings as a family. And you know, it's not even, you're not paying per person. It's if you have a family unit of father, mother, and 3 children, you still pay the 500 shillings. That's enough to cover all 5 of you. And that translates to 6,000. If you look backwards, you'll find it's 12 shillings a day. I know there are many people who can't afford, but under the UHC, those families apparently have been identified, and the government has planned to pay for them, and they have paid starting July this year. Hopefully there will be almost 1 million households that will be brought on board through NHIS. Yes.
But for those that, for example, the story of the gentleman which was featured in the Standard yesterday, those that find themselves today, they have been unable to pay for one reason or another. Maybe their relatives have taken off, yes, or whatever. They've been unable to pay rising hospital bills. What is their recourse? You are being detained in a hospital because you have not paid a bill. You are there for months, 3 months, 1 year. And this is just not an isolated case. There are very many such cases around the country. What is the best recourse for them and also for the facilities?
For the facility, they don't have a recourse, unfortunately. Because the question becomes, do they pick the patient and take to the police station? Like the way a hotel would do if you go and eat and you say you don't have money. You know, the next thing is they will just call the police and pick you. So what do the hospitals now do? So different hospitals will try a way out. Because sometimes you look at the cost that you're incurring to keep this person. And sometimes also you feel, maybe the hospital feels that the relatives or the patients are capable. So sometimes also you will find family dynamics. The person's family are capable, but just because they have issues internal, then they just disappear.
Yep.
So now you don't know what to do as a hospital. And as I have told you, as a hospital, you also have, like you have used oxygen on this patient. The person who supplied you has a contract with you as a hospital. The contract stipulates that you pay within 60 days. You don't pay the 60 days, he just stops supplying until you clear the initial bill, then we can talk after that. Then you have other patients who are capable of paying. Now you cannot get supply for them because you have severed that relationship by not paying your suppliers on time. So now the question, and then you have KRA, who doesn't matter. That's a revenue. That's a revenue for you. For them, they don't care. They want to see how you have tried and you are unable to recover that money. What methods have you used for you to put it as a write-off? Otherwise, you will pay the tax, 30% out of that. So you are paying tax for a bill that you have never been paid. You are paying your suppliers. Then you have your staff who are professionals. nurses, doctors who have looked after these patients. And then they also have families to look after. So you are in a catch-22 situation. You don't know which method. And that's why I told you some hospitals might be forced to use a barrier mechanism. And also sometimes also the patients. A patient is in the hospital bills are increasing, then you advise them, this hospital bill is increasing. Could we transfer you to a public hospital so that you continue with your treatment rather than incurring more bill? Then you are insulted and you are told, nani alikwambia tumeshindwa kulipa. And the day for discharge comes and all starts. So you wonder. Now, honestly speaking, people you gave an option out of this problem earlier who insulted you, and now here they are telling you we don't have money. Is that not deception? Now, how can you even accept their word again?
You know, it's a bit of a conundrum because I'm looking at the balancing act that those who are in this health private sector have to contend with. Let me ask this question, though. If the government's involvement was improved, what then it looks like is that the space that their non-involvement has provided would also reduce. And since I see more and more private hospitals coming up, I can only take the view that money is being made from it. People do not open up ventures so that they can lose money. They open up ventures so that they can make money. Again, I'm bringing this to you. What would be the balance? Should the government, in your opinion, of course, perhaps take a bigger role in healthcare? Or should they simply leave the status quo as it is and let the private sector fill in this gap?
Not really. The government has a big role. And if you look at the Health Act, it says under Section 88, 1, subsection 1, the Cabinet Secretary shall pursue strategies conducive to the development and regulation of private health service and their attunement to the needs of the population. Number 2, the public and private health service and facilities shall complement each other in the provision of comprehensive and accessible health care to the people. So it's complementation. So now, how do you complement each other? It's many things that the government can do. Yes, it can invest more in the public sector, allocate more funds to the Ministry of Health or the counties, or even push the counties sort of ring-fence the health budget and say that out of the money that we give you as a county, this amount of money will only be used in health and nothing more. That you cannot use it for any other purpose. The money that you collect from hospitals will only be used to improve the hospitals. So that's one way of saying, okay, we are ring-fencing, increasing our budget allocation.
Yeah.
Then the second option is to go through insurance, pay for people who can't afford, strengthen NHIF, and then allow NHIF now to seek health service for its members across, whether it's public or private sector, so that patients have a choice on where to go. Then also come in on the other side, of course, but I understand the government also needs to balance its budget, is remove levies and taxes on health products and health items, whether it's drugs, whether it's equipment. But you see, at the same time,
it's a revenue source. It's a revenue source for government. Dr. Abdi Mohammed, thank you very much for the conversation this morning. Thank you for joining us. We hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Asante sana. And also thank you to our audience on KTN Home. You've been with us from 7 a.m. This conversation happens every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. You can switch over to SpiceFM 94.4 if you're in Nairobi. If you're in Mombasa, it's 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret, Malindi is 97.7 and Nyeri, our frequency is 90.9. We understand we've been having some issues, but our technical team is on the ground and you'll be back on air shortly. Good morning. It's 4 minutes to 9.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
3 minutes to 9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It is the situation room. So, as you hear from Dr. Mohammed and what he's saying, it's a catch-22 even for the private healthcare providers. You're running a business. And you're looking at how do I make sure that I'm able to maintain this facility and to offer the services, especially to those who need it and those then who will be able to pay for it. If you are unable to manage your risks, you'll run aground.
You know, this issue of costs and how to finance healthcare, it's a never-ending debate. In the Moi era, there was something that came into being called cost sharing.
Yep.
It arose from this understanding that perhaps even as you try to provide healthcare as a government, there are certain costs that the public can help you share. But unfortunately, with such well-intentioned schemes, they have a tendency of running amok. Something happens and people take advantage of it, and somehow it goes really south. It goes south-south. And what started off as something that was reasonable and probably manageable becomes a monster. And then you have a situation where whenever you talk of public health care, the first thing that comes to your mind is not healthcare, but it's the corruption that is associated with it. And that is a situation that is actually untenable. Yes.
Some comments that were there on social media. I'm of the opinion that some hospitals are minting too much money and the government should rein in on such hospitals. That's what Johanna Omoro was saying.
Yeah, I mean, so there are quite a number of hospitals who are out there offering, care. But it would seem as if they're just commercial ventures as opposed to offering this particular service.
They are commercial ventures?
Yeah, but no, but at the end of the day, it's to offer care.
Yes.
Medical care.
Yes.
And so that part seems to have been thrown out of the window completely.
Most
It's a combination of the
getting
two.
it.
It's a combination of the two.
Look, if you look at some of what we call the high-end hospitals, they charge you an arm and a leg. But people who go there will tell you they get the services. That's why they keep going there. And remember...
There are some who argue that they get the services equivalent to a finger.
Yes.
Yet you've paid for the arm
Paid
and
for
the leg.
arm and the leg.
Precisely. And then there are those who will tell you that actually, if you go to the public service, all right, and then they add a rider, and you know someone...
you will get very good care.
Yes, now the majority of us don't know someone.
But
so then what do we do?
Keep you right here for more conversations into the next hour. Good morning, it's 9 a.m.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
It's not too bad on Mombasa Road, outbound. There are many options now. It's great. That road that has opened up and then joins the Southern Bypass is a good option for folks using that and using the Southern Bypass then into the city. So it doesn't look too terrible from where we are. Where does it look bad? Can you let us know? SpiceFM KE on Twitter or text on 40127. Want to keep things moving this morning. Coming off of Thika Road, not too bad either. Getting into the CBD will not be too painful. All right, let us know where it might get clogged up and we'll be able to help out here or there. All right? All right.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga. Researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
All right, it's coming up to 2 minutes after 9. This is The Conversation Continues, Kenya's biggest conversation. CT, what was that proverb again?
An orphaned calf licks its own back.
An orphaned calf licks its own back.
Yes.
Meaning what?
Meaning, if you know anything about animals, and I'm referring to four-footed animals, you'll find that one of the things that they do is they lick each other. I assume that it is a cleansing process. And with calves and their parents, most of their mothers, it's something you see very, very often. Okay? So whether the effect of the licking is soothing, whether it is medicinal, whatever purpose it serves, it's an important part of a calf's life. It's something they get used to. Now, we're saying that in the absence of that parent, this is something the calf has to do for itself. And the thought that came to my mind when we talked about it, I thought that calf really has to have a very long tongue.
Yeah, man. Surely.
Yes.
So you basically fend for yourself.
Spot on. Spot on. Fend for yourself.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It'll be okay.
And cows don't have uncles and aunties.
They do.
They just don't know them.
I'm not really sure. I've never had this conversation with a cow, so I really can't speak authoritatively on this particular subject. But it's like asking a tree if it feels pain when you cut on it. There are those who study trees. Those who are serious botanists, they'll tell you, yes, trees not only feel pain, they also scream. Yes. They will tell you. So, yes, it is possible.
Whatever, man. Okay. So, you want to take a sip of water and then you wanted to leave. Why is it?
Why am I leaving? Well, apart from, actually, you've summarized it well. I am done.
Cakes and cookies are done. People are finished.
Well, when you talk about finish,
He's a cake and cookie.
Yes, well, there's a joke about it, okay? And when you talk about people being finished, in a Kenyan context, it doesn't mean that you cease to exist. It just means that the person that people know you to be will have metamorphosized into another being. So for all we know, instead of being a human being, you might be a plant. So one could argue that you're finished.
Yeah, that could be the argument.
Yes.
The argument could be that you're finished. So now you're finished.
For now, I am.
Siuende basi, kwa nafikiri.
You see, this is the thing about Kenyans. You answer a question honestly, and then you're greeted with phrases and statements that are really bordering insults. So suende, to essentially being told to go. All right.
If you are going to go, you must go. Take you at your and if you want to stay, come my way. And so City Muga is deciding that he wants to leave, and that's him living. Basically, he has some matters to attend to in the next 1 hour.
He's even wearing his jacket.
He's even wearing his jacket.
One could say, I am gone.
Like the morning mist at noon.
I'm just trying to think of a Kikuyu song that says, if you want to go. Kikuyu is just full of those kind of music, of songs. You want to go? Go.
Look, the song that comes to mind is not go. It's please don't go.
See you tomorrow, City. All right, at 6 minutes past 9. So the conversation continues. And here, let's look at COVID, the measures that were put in place by the President and the National Security Council, the National Emergency Response Committee on COVID-19. Schools closed right on schedule, right? Schools were supposed to reopen at the beginning of May so that it can come now for the completion of the term to clear the 2020 year. the education CS, Professor Magoha, said yesterday that it's actually possible that we shall reopen schools on time. This is what he said. I'm leapfrogging and hoping that since it looks like the pandemic is starting to flatten, there may be no need for now for me to summon education stakeholders to look afresh at the timetable. It remains as we had decided earlier in the year. That's what he said yesterday when he was supervising the administration of the KCSE exams in Kiambu County. So basically he's saying the ministry is fully prepared for the start of another term and everything has been put in place to ensure both teachers and children continue with smooth learning. Now, we're talking about how many days? About 27 or so days.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is a good thing by the education CS? He's saying at this point, just by casual observation, remember he is a physician. By casual observation, he is a member of the National Emergency Response Committee. By casual observation, remember also he sits in the cabinet. He basically is saying at the point and looking at the way the trend is going, I don't see a need to call the stakeholders and ask them, let's look at what we need to do. It looks like we may actually be able to reopen schools if everything remains constant and the way you guys have been behaving so far. If you continue behaving this way, children shall go back to school. Should he be calling the stakeholders? Anyway.
Yes.
To prepare.
Yes.
Just in case.
You see, this is the problem. Because every time you say, okay, well, I look at it and I take a bird's eye view of the situation, and then we're going to make decisions based on that. The same decisions that were being taken now to have this, restricted measures right now is because certain things were not taken into consideration in December when the experts told us the same thing. So now, even if you see a trend going in a particular way right now, it is necessary to inform the stakeholders about the decisions that will be made, whichever direction you're going in. I think it's important to do so that we're not chasing ourselves, right? So whether schools will open on time, it is, as indicated, May 10th, 11th there, still talk about it. Whether there's a possibility that they will not, still talk about it, because we always find ourselves in this mess and this cycle of rolling over, okay, shall we not? And then in that case, have a contingency plan. There's nothing wrong with having a contingency plan today. So what if you see for the next 1 week, things are looking good? Then what happens next week if things now start to go south again and you didn't put a contingency plan in place and you're a week to the opening of schools and there's no plan? There's nothing wrong with a plan, because guess what? Even if you don't have to use it, you can shelve it. Or are we saying that it's going to cost millions to come up with a plan about how we're going to rejig the school year? There is nothing wrong with having a conversation, because it's one of the first things that came into the minds of people anyway, the minute that President Uhuru Kenyatta made that first address. Okay, so now that he's shut things down, we're supposed to go back to school in May. Are we still going to go back to school? It was one of the first conversations. So there's nothing wrong with having that conversation. You're not going to say, okay, there's no need for us to meet with stakeholders, everybody relax, because guess what? Everybody is going to relax. That's the thing. And we don't know just yet, do we? The hope is that there will not be a change in these plans. That, of course, is the hope. That kids can go back to school and continue with the schedule, right? But then what happens if it doesn't?
Well, if it doesn't, by that time, when you're getting closer to the time, you will call the stakeholders. About 2 weeks to... Because what is it that you're going to say? You're going to say, so we're going to extend the holiday period by a further 3 weeks, by a further 4 weeks. And we bring in the protocols that we had last year back into play. So what is it that we're going to do now? What we are going to do is we are going to have either tuition being offered by KICD. We're going to allow learners to continue just doing what they were doing. It's an extended holiday. Remember what he said last year when they were extending the holidays? He was saying, we have not reopened. We are not into second term yet. As far as the Ministry of Education is concerned, we are still in first term. What we have is an extended holiday. I think that's what it's going to be.
An extended holiday.
An extended holiday. Because truth be told, you are not going to be able to say, all right, so we are going to offer third term learning virtually. You don't have the capacity.
It's not going to happen.
You don't have that. You know very well it's not going to happen. So at this point, that's why there's no point of calling stakeholders to talk about the obvious.
They can't do it anyway. So, no, in terms of now what the plan would be in terms of rejigging, remember the calendar that we're working with right now is already a rejigged calendar.
Completely.
Totally. I mean, we are starting the beginning of the year. We're starting the year in August, September. We're not gonna be able to start the school year in January until 2023. So now, in terms of, are we going to have to shift things around by a month or so? Then those are conversations that, okay, fine, can be had within 2 weeks. You don't need to now start saying, let's call a 3-day conference and see how we can do this. Surely that's something that you can put together really quickly. However, I don't think that there needs to be a complete dismissal of the fact that you can have this conversation, because what he's doing basically now is saying, okay, well,
not yet. It's not yet time.
Look at the numbers. It's possible that they're going down. We might just go back to school without any problems. You don't know that.
But I think the question maybe then could also be, for parents, would you be comfortable sending your kids back to school in 3 weeks' time?
Look, Eric, people want to send their kids back to school. Trust me.
Why?
Folks want their kids to be in school. They got used to having them in school again. They got used to having them back in school after that 1 year.
The pressure on Magoha is to actually reopen schools.
Yes.
Not this whole thing of, there's a far
Do you remember
way,
that Do you remember that conversation when it was, hold on a minute, we've been out of school for a year. We've been out of school for a year, almost a year. We've been out of work for some time. We were not able to get. So now we got back into that whole system and we knew, okay, this is where we are now.
Yeah.
And that pressure was like, don't open just now because we don't have enough money. We don't have, just give us 3 months, this kind of thing. And then we went into the second wave. So things kind of staved off anyway. So now folks got back into January 4th. We are back to school and all systems go. And, learners were back. We had rolled on. Exams came. Don't want to stay home again. Now they've been at home for 7 weeks, 4 weeks now, another 3 weeks to go. People want their children to go back to school and continue with this thing. So the hope truly is, in fact, that, things go off, in my opinion. Things stave off and kids can return to school. So the pressure is none of this nonsense of we're going to have an extended holiday. No, it's enough.
Let the children go back to school.
I think I also see
they're safer there.
True. 1, 2, I think I also see that a lot of parents realized the losses that their children made knowledge and learning wise over that 1 year. And only going back to school and then going back into the learning process did they realize how much of a loss that learners actually went through not being in school for a year. There was a lot of, retrogression when it came to learning, and I don't think parents across, it doesn't matter the classes, social classes, everybody saw that there was a dip, and people now are ready for their kids to get back to where they were before and learn more and learn better. Nobody wants a gap. Nobody wants a break anymore. Unless I'm wrong.
Yeah. So the CS for Education, Professor George Magoha, said yesterday that, the way things are looking right now, the positivity rate seems to be dropping. Then we are on course to reopening schools at the beginning of May as scheduled. The question that we want you to participate in answering this morning through 0719-012-600 is, are you ready? Are you comfortable with your children going back to school early May? Are you comfortable with your children going back to school early May, bearing in mind we may still not have ridden the wave, the third wave of COVID-19? Are you comfortable with that? 0719-012-600. Let's take a break at 9:15. Take a look at the weather and then we'll go to the phone lines and also read your comments on social media. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is the Situation Room. the only way to start your day.
Rain showers in certain parts of Nairobi at 18 degrees, highs of 23 and lows of 16 today. It's also raining in Nyeri at 17. We'll see highs of 22, lows of 13. 14 will be the low in Nakuru. It's raining at 19, highs of 25. Highs of 24 in Eldoret. 18 degrees and mostly cloudy, lows of 14. It's partly sunny in Kisumu at 22, highs of 27 and lows of 19. Partly sunny in Kakamega. 17 the low and highs of 26. We're looking at light rain in Mombasa at 28, highs of 31 and lows of 25. Light rain in Malindi as well at 28, highs of 31 and lows of 26. Kampala is 19 degrees and rainy, highs of 23 and lows of 18. Light rain also in Dar es Salaam at 25, highs of 28 and lows of 24. It's sunny in Johannesburg at 20, highs of 27 and lows of 15. 34 will be the high recorded in Lagos today, lows of 26 and mostly sunny conditions. It's also sunny in Kinshasa at 24, highs of 32 and lows of 24. Beijing is sunny at 15, highs of 17 and lows of 3. 11 degrees will be the high in Paris. It's 2 degrees and sunny right now, coming down to lows of 0. Lows of 2 in London, which is what it currently is, and sunny, highs of 12. We're also going to see highs of 17 in New York. Rainy at 7 this morning, coming back down to lows of 9.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Magoha says, well, the way things are looking, we are just going to be able to reopen schools in about 3 weeks' time at the beginning of May as initially scheduled. The question we are asking you, are you comfortable with your children going back to school at the beginning of May as scheduled? Bearing in mind, we are still in the middle of the third wave of COVID-19 in the country. Let's go to the phone lines. Audrey in Kino, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. Good morning, Ndu. How are you?
Good morning. Fine, thank you.
I do have some question for the CS. Why are we in such a hurry to open up the schools? Remember what
we are
happened
not in a hurry.
when we
7
opened-
weeks.
Come on, Eric. This is the same thing we did with the second wave. We opened schools, Form 4s and Class 4 went back to school. How many teachers did we lose in that period? The loss was alarming.
Yep.
And with the third wave, we have seen that it is not just secluded to the vulnerable. The third wave is affecting even the young. I think at this point, we should not be talking about reopening of schools just yet. I would rather my kid is safe because we can always resume studies.
Yeah.
It is not a matter of life and death. But the pandemic is definitely a matter of life and death.
So how long do you think then the holiday should be extended by? Or what should be the indicator for the CS to say, all right, now let's reopen schools?
I think the indicator would be when we are having significant change. And it is not a change that within a week we are seeing 3 days there's change. But significant change, a trend that has gone over 1 week.
Okay.
Only then can we make informed decisions. But when we rush into things, we will make the situation worse than it is.
Very good
Kids
point.
are much safer with their parents.
Very good points, Audrey. Thank you very much for your call.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Audrey.
Yekonyo.
Oh, hi, guys.
Hi.
I love that challenge this whole year. Where is our respected bro going to Japan?
Amechoka na sisi.
Oh no, he did. And that's why I tell him to make sure that he has a signpost to say all the things that he can do, and that is why you see the odd needs him. Okay.
Yep.
I know he has gone out on the people matter. Yeah.
Yes.
Don't joke with that guy.
He's a serious Kenyan. Yes.
Yeah. On a sad note, let me just recap about yesterday's tweet. Yesterday's tweet that you read as you are quoting.
Zachary, there's something wrong with your line. Maybe try calling again.
Oh, okay. Let me do it.
Okay, tafadhali. In the meantime, let's hear from Edwin in Nyeri. Edwin, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good
How are
morning.
Yes, I'm very fine.
Okay, Edwin, are you comfortable with the children going back to school in early May?
Okay, one thing I would like to think about Magua. People should not take Magua serious because he has been responding to some of the sentiments that are coming from people. You find this time he has commented.
Hello? Oh, call back, Edwin. We've just lost you. 0719-012-600. The question is, are you comfortable with the children going back to school at the beginning of May? The CS for Education says, look, we are noticing that the positivity rate has been dropping. We are now averaging about 16% of all the samples tested on a daily basis. Maybe in 3 weeks' time, it will have dropped to below 10% to single digits. So we'll be able to reopen schools. We want to hear what you think about that. Let's go back to the phone lines. Sami in Nakuru, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
Good morning.
My contribution this morning, I think I would let my child go to school. During the second wave, when the children were in school, proper measures were being put in school. And I think right now, maybe the ministry is doing even tougher measures in school. So they're even much safer in school than at home. Yes.
You think so?
I would really accept my child to go to school.
Okay.
Yes.
How about the concerns, for example, by Audrey, who says, look, at the time when we reopened for the grade 4s, standard 8s, and form 4s, we saw the number of teachers who got affected by COVID, infected and affected. Same thing happened at the beginning of the year. Maybe this is endangering not just the children, but also endangering the school communities.
But where we are right now, we cannot be 100% sure safe. So let's work it out. The ministry to work on their part. If there's a teacher who is unwell, a replacement, and life goes on. So we have to now try to manage the situation and live with it.
Okay.
Because we can't run away from it, and we can't run away from our responsibilities.
I
Because
hear you saying we have to adapt.
Yes, we have to adapt. Yes.
Thank you, Sami.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Seth in Oyugis, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Seth.
How are you in the studio?
Good.
Okay, my contribution. I don't see any problem with the students going back to school. The corona thing is here to stay with us. Na tunafaa tu kutafuta measures of living with it. Yes, so I'm supporting.
Let them go back
to
school.
Let them go back to school.
Okay. Thank you very much, Seth. Let's try now whether Zachary's line is better. Good morning.
Oh, good morning. Can you now hear me well?
Yes,
perfect.
much better.
I've got so many gadgets, about 3 gadgets. Start by gadgets so that I can always speak to SpiceFM, yeah?
Okay.
Now, I was trying to recap about yesterday's tweets that somebody wrote, and you read it in there, and you did good, yeah? Let me say that I felt bad because it's very, very... It's unfortunate that in the present-day Kenya, we have some people who can describe what you do there as being, there's this word dissident, yeah? Or dissent, yeah? Dissent, yeah? Let me just say that such people, we need to pray for them. And if I may describe, if I may return an arrow the way it came, yeah? Let me say that.
Say that in Kikuyu. It's even much sweeter.
Yeah? They belong to the dark ages, yeah? And going by that, you guys, you know the kind of work that you are doing. You are honest. You are not the gutter players, yeah? You are trained to talk the truth.
Asante,
and
asante
look for
Zachary.
truth and to tell to the people the truth. And we are praying that, personally, I pray for you good people, yeah?
Asante.
Because I know that probably there are some areas that you touch and, the untouchables there. You talk about them, yeah? You have put your rhymes in front, yeah? And we always pray for you.
Asante.
You even had me tell Monique so yesterday, yeah?
Yes.
And SpiceFM is the radio of the woke people, yeah?
Yes.
We are awoke.
Kabisa.
Now, coming to the song, the Kikuyu song that you are trying to look for, there is one that says, okay, something like that, yeah?
Yes. We're
Meaning,
number one.
yeah, you have got the permission or the letter or whatever, yeah? But do not sing it to Marim. Marim should not go.
Okay.
Marimadro should stay. And now coming to the issue of reopening schools, the money that I'm right now using to call you and to even probably help a few people that I can be able to, it has come from schools. I deal with schools mostly, yeah?
Okay.
Schools are my number one customers. They are the principals, and I respect them so much, yeah? Our kids are safe in school. Even me, when I'm going to correct the checks that I always tell you, I got some rigorous tests, and I asked them. See, yesterday I was with you here when I was working. Where have I contracted the COVID? Yeah?
But they don't care.
They tell me, no, this is the procedure. And I tell them, oh, I'm happy. I'm happy because I know that my nieces, my kids, if I have them in schools, and they are doing the same where they are. They are, in fact, if I were Mr. Magoha, and I really support Mr. Magoha, his principles are good, yeah? And he is a serious guy.
Yep.
He's a serious guy. If he can hear me, let him know that he has got one avid supporter. He should tell them to prepare on Monday they are going back to school.
Okay.
Don't even wait for May. Open,
wait for
open
May
next
10th.
week.
No, May for what? I'm telling you, kids are good in school.
Okay, we hear you.
They are well protected in school. The only thing that we need to do, Mr. Eric, the teachers are the most likely people to now take COVID to the because they are going outside, isn't it? And in all the schools that I have visited, even the teachers have to be checked.
Yep.
There is the soap and sanitizer from. Every few meters you find a container of water. Sanitizer. You know. That is the correct environment that we want, and our kids are safe in school.
Thank you, Zachary. Asante
Otherwise,
sana.
have a nice day, and may the program continue.
Thank you so much, Zachary.
Okoth in Othero, good morning.
Good morning, you Latif.
How are you today?
Good morning.
I'm very fine. Can I also greet Duoko?
Yes, good morning.
Duoko. Yes. On the subject today,
yes,
I wanted to say that the government has not provided a very good means for people to understand what is going on. It's very embarrassing to see that things are happening in a way that nobody can really understand. Too much confusion around the issues of lockdown, the issues of curfews, the issues of children not. We don't even know exactly if they will go back to school, even though the seats was saying.
It's still not clear.
That, the timetable.
But of course, do you think maybe it's perhaps because we are dealing with a disease that is also not giving us ample notice, or even telling us how it's going to behave next week?
That we understand. That we know. Since the time Corona came in, we are dealing with a situation that we even don't know. We can't predict tomorrow. But at the same time, hello?
Yes?
Yes.
Hello? Are you listening to me?
We can
Yes,
hear you.
we are hearing you.
Yes. The same time,
Hello, Okoth? Okay, I think we've lost Okoth. Omar in Kinango.
Yes, good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Omar.
Prof and Mndu.
Ndu is here. Prof is not right now.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. I think we should have even shortened the holiday. 7 weeks is just a longer time. Yeah.
Why?
7 weeks. We'd have at least made 5 weeks holiday. Yeah, because those children are safe in school. Yeah. The safest place a child can be right now is school, because we teachers are there constantly to remind them. Wash your hands, wear your face mask properly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at home nobody cares. Yeah.
So they're not getting that much attention at home as they would get in a school environment.
No, they're not getting any attention.
Okay.
Mom and dad are out there looking for money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the kids are out there playing.
Yes.
Omar, that's a very good point.
Point,
Asante sana. Have a lovely day in Kinango.
You too.
Thank you, Omar.
Asante. Taking a break now to see what's happening on the roads, and then we pick more of your calls. 0719-012-600. Are you comfortable with your children going back to school in May, despite the third wave of COVID-19? CS George Magoha says, looking at the trend in the last couple of days since the lockdown was announced, we are seeing the positivity rate dropping. And therefore, it's possible that in 3 weeks' time, we'll actually have got it to a point where we are then safely able to reopen schools and the kids can go back to school. He says he has still not found a need to call an emergency meeting of all the stakeholders to come and decide what needs to happen. But should things change, he's definitely going to do that. So for now, are you comfortable with your children going back to school? That's a question we're asking. Let's take a break. We'll be picking your calls shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive, and of course, SpiceFMKE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique, the official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be.
All right. Well, the roads are looking much more pliable today. Not too much drama as we saw yesterday. Folks are settling into what will look like the situation for some time now. So Enterprise Road is an option today, looking much better. Coming through the Likoni interchange towards the Southern Bypass. Southern Bypass, another option. Getting off Mombasa Road. People have discovered it, and I think it's looking much better now. Coming off of Fika Road also into and out of the CBD is looking good, guys. We've done well today. Just in case anything does clog up, don't forget, you can get in touch. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4
All right, 25 minutes
Spice
time.
FM.
Edwin is back on the line. Edwin, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I'm back again.
Yes, you were making a point. Schools reopening, is it a good thing?
Yeah, it's a good thing because as per now, I think the country had managed to flatten the curve. But according to the statement from the Magoha, I said we are not supposed to take his word seriously because we know him. He's a man of changing. You may fight today commenting against what mentioned or implemented yesterday, you find today it had changed. But according to the way this wave is behaving, you will find today the figures have lied, and you find a ministry responding or commenting the tighter tough measures that continue being put in place. But according to Magoha, I think that people should not take him seriously. The treatment may change. That's my statement.
Okay. Thank you very much, Edwin. Martin in Kisumu, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Good Fine, morning. Thank you.
Okay. I think I'm agreeing with Magoa. Totally. Because he made a very bold statement. And I believe that he really caught the committee of experts. They are called stakeholders. Flat-footed, because I think some of them were actually waiting for call from the Ministry of Education, so that they can discuss the same. But I think they should perish such thoughts, because it is not going to happen. I think schools should be open. The 7 weeks were too much for the learners. And of course, we have also found that these learners are safer in school compared to when they are at home. So I believe that that was a very good statement, which should be encouraged. You know that this country, we have some people who are just grandstanding. They don't want things to move. And I believe that he has actually provoked some of them, maybe in the ministry
into action.
Of health. Yes.
Thank you.
I think that is what to do.
Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you very much. Some comments as well on social media. Mercy Kamau says, no problem with them going back to school. Both my children's respective schools have gone all out to ensure safety and have been very, very, very impressed by the measures and all those various emphases being mercies. Kalon Dankoli says, I'm not comfortable. This third wave is more serious, and trust me, students will always be students. You instruct them to sit a meter apart and they'll do the direct opposite once again. Good morning, guys. Thank you very much and good morning. Muteu Kasanga, the chairperson of the Kenya Private Schools Association, says...
Schools in the education sector were not the super spreader occurrences which caused this lockdown. We have succeeded in keeping children and students safe in schools. Magoha is 100% correct. You know, and I'm leaning there. I'm leaning in that direction as well.
Children are safer in school.
I mean, I'm looking at it now. Look, you know, there's sometimes when you can make a judgment. You can make a judgment based on what you see. And there's also sometimes you can make a judgment based on what you don't see. A lot of us said so many things, and I being one of them that said so many things before schools opened. Oh my goodness, what are we going to do? We're going to spread this thing. But then we found that there were very many schools who took a responsibility, and I was unequivocally impressed with what they did and how they took care of children. I was really impressed. And I saw that some schools, when they, even before the government announced, when they saw that cases started to rise and they were a week to closure of schools, closed. And they said, you know what? We're seeing things are getting out of hand. Let's close schools a week in advance. And they were able to do that and get by really well. They were sending messages home every day. Make sure your child has this, that, the other thing. When we're looking at spreading of COVID-19, actually, these folks, schools, children, don't fall into this category.
But then the experts who predicted that we're going to have a third wave in May used schools reopening as one of the metrics for that. They said, look at the behavior of the community. Number one, there was the behavior around Christmas, the travel for Christmas holidays. Number two, there was the travel of 10 million or so learners going back to school, reopening of schools. And they said those are therefore going to make sure that we have higher spread of COVID. It'll peak around March. It's happening. So the experts told us that it was schools reopening is actually going to precipitate the increase in positivity of COVID-19. We have seen it happen.
So using that same, then you would say that, so if children went back to school in May, then come July, we're likely to see COVID wave 4 in the country. I mean, I think I'm coming from.
Here we are. We have locked down. We've closed schools, right? And the children are back home.
Yeah.
Those who belong to these 5 counties in the disease zone, the 1 zone, will then reopen and go out of the 1 zone.
Plus, we have 700,000 students who are leaving next week going back home,
there
right?
You go.
Okay, who are finishing their KCSE, which I understand. What my argument was at the time was that I saw hundreds of thousands of children getting sick. And I said, why are we sending them back to school? But we didn't see the reporting of this. We saw some pockets of schools around the country where 15 here, 20 there, 30 there. And then at some point, we raised eyebrows and said, oh my goodness, hold on. Are we seeing that children are being infected or affected? But we actually didn't see that, to be honest. We didn't see, I can understand when we say they were super.
We didn't test. And remember what we knew from COVID, and even now, what we know from COVID is that the younger population is actually not directly affected.
No.
They get infected, they spread.
They spread it easier.
Yes. So we did not see hospitalization of children. We didn't see children getting sick to a point where they have contracted COVID-19 with mild or serious symptoms. Many of them were possibly just asymptomatic, but they took it to their parents, to their grandparents, and that's why we are seeing this peak now.
I hear you. I'm saying that I think that they were very careful. I think there were many measures that they put in place, and we did not see a slackening of those measures in the middle of the term or anything like this. And I think that they have been extremely careful for the most part. If there was any kind of carelessness, I think it was then curtailed at some point. I don't see that schools would be the ones that you would want to restrict and then have them not go back to school. I think that kids should go back. I think that children should go back to school. Learning should continue. I think that the losses that would be seen would far outweigh what progress you would make if you kept them home. I do.
So it's greater benefit to basically reopen the schools.
Yes. Overall. I'm not even talking about business and those people who supply schools. I'm not even talking about that.
Yeah.
I'm looking at what parents, and they were only able to see the weight of the loss when they went back. And I'm talking about academically, I'm talking about socially and other things. When they went back to school and they started learning again, and parents are like, hold on a minute. Truly, we see the gap of them having not been in school, in as much as we had to keep them away because of this disease.
Yeah.
We can now see how we can create that spot between being careful and having them back in school. It can be done. It can be.
It's possible to do it. Yeah, if you actually think about now also the other impacts, just like Zachary was saying, the ecosystem around schools being open is huge. Transport sector benefits from this. The suppliers of the consumables in schools benefit from this. There are very many private schools, they will pay their learners because the schools are reopened. And so there's a lot that you can benefit from. Joining us on the line is Mudeo Kasanga. She's the chairperson of the Private Schools Association. Good morning, Mudeo.
Good morning. How are you guys?
We're fine, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I was following online like I do any conversation on education. And it's quite interesting what the different views that are there. And I think one of the things that we all must just come round and accept is that COVID is not going anywhere. And we need to look at what lockdowns serve, what the purpose of the lockdowns is. This particular one, if the terminology I have understood being used in the closed doors is correct, is a circuit breaker lockdown. That's why it was not national.
Yep.
It was within a limited part of the country, and the idea was to just circuit break that very, very fast spread. And when you look at the geographical region that was enclosed, it included the border to Tanzania and the city and the places where people were most likely to go out to, Naivasha, whatnot. So for us in education, like I look at my county, we know what the super spreader event was. We had a by-election that caused a lot more than schools did. And yes, the projection was around Easter, we would have a surge. And the issues around the surge are mass transport. the mass transport that would have caused the biggest problem would have been the Easter migration,
Yes.
the human migration that Kenyans, embark on every Easter.
Yeah.
And we saw last year that was important that we pinned that down to curb the entry of the virus into the population. Now we have the virus in the population. It is there. It was inevitable. This was projected.
Yep.
And we will keep having surges, surges that we have to keep containing until the population learns that we have to keep washing hands, we have to keep wearing masks, we cannot shut down. Otherwise, the cost to education of shutting it down is not a cost this country can bear.
Right.
If you scrutinize the number of girls, especially who did not turn up for KCSE because they got pregnant, they have dropped out of school, the number of young men, is that a cost we want to keep throwing at our poorest population? We have to sort of think larger than the selfishness of adults who don't want to wear masks when they have to wear masks, who have to wash hands, who don't want to, just take care of their own families and stop punishing the children. And you are right. The kids, whenever they catch it, they're largely very asymptomatic. And this is what the WHO has said. Open education, there's no real reason to keep children at home. This pandemic is here. The vaccination and being careful is what we need to sort of emphasize. Absolutely shout at the top of our voices at the rooftops. The population must wear masks. We must have hand hygiene.
And can't we see, Mudeo, from what we've seen, even in the last term, from opening up in January, that kids, younger or older, and we saw kids from 4 until 16, who were then able to adapt quickly to these measures that were put in place by the individual schools and were basically able to fall in line. We had kids, a 4-year-old go to school in the morning and still come back home with his mask because everybody is making sure that, they're invested in making sure that they're safe. So it can be done, it can be practiced.
Exactly. And this was the point I was pushing in October when there was so much skepticism about the January opening. And we were telling parents, and we are still continuing to tell parents, look, us guys know how to enforce. It is when they get home where there's lawlessness. Right now, there's simply no control of kids. They're just all over the villages. I am dreading when the Form 4s who have finished school come back home. They have no transition, until July. We still are cleaning up the transition from 2019. We're still urging young people who finished Form 4 in 2019, please go to college. You don't want these young people roaming about our communities. Because this is where now the girls who are in Form 3, Form 2, Form 1 get pregnant. They know these young men. And right now they're just strutting about in villages doing nothing. We need to open up the economy. We need to put money in parents' hands so that these kids can get money for training and for further education. We just need, and the only way we can do that is if the general population sort of just it needs to just ingrained. The way you don't walk out of your house without shoes when you're going to work, wear your mask and wear it properly. Wash your hands every spot when you find water. Just wash your hands. Avoid large gatherings. And this is where we need to really find a way of bringing down our politicians, because they seem to be the ones driving us down a certain path. And we know the next year, towards the end of this year, next year, it's going to be so hot. So we're going to keep having this fight. But for us in education, we are doing our bit. Why isn't everyone else doing their bit?
There's another bit that you could be doing for you in education, which is clearly apparent that you're not doing. And this is the uptake of the COVID vaccine for the frontline workers. That includes teachers. Why are we seeing such a low number of teachers who have gone for the COVID vaccine?
For us in the private sector, I think we are at about 100,000 teachers and a bit. I have had quiet words with the heads of association of the others, especially since the ones in the government schools have actually the high risk age profile. And I can only say Kenyans are strange animals.
Mudeo?
Haki yetu. Then when the haki comes, everything comes. I can't explain it. I have no words to explain it. I literally have no words.
You see the correlation between that.
Sector, I've seen whole schools ganging up, putting teachers in buses, and transporting them to vaccination centers. And the vaccination centers running out of daily quotas. Some of them in the rural areas have, say, 100 vaccines per day, or something like that. We are seeing very good uptake in the private sector, and I really want to congratulate my sector for pushing that. At least now I can be sure at least more than a quarter of our high-age teachers in the early years have all been vaccinated. But I can't explain Kenyanness. I think you guys see it more than me.
That's true. Based on what you're saying, actually, those in public sector have more teachers who are in that age bracket that is actually under danger. So do you think then their employer, the Teacher Service Commission, should compel them to go for the vaccine? We are talking about reopening schools in 3 weeks' time.
Right. And we have 60,000 only having been vaccinated. Only 60,000 teachers in the public sector have been vaccinated.
When you have nothing to lose, like us guys in the private sector, if schools don't reopen, we have so much to lose.
Yep.
Those people will immediately go without a salary. Okay, so with the government sector, there's nothing to lose. So how do you make people who have nothing to lose do anything? I have no wise words there. For us in the private sector during the closure, if you are over 60 and you felt like you are over 50, and you felt that you are too vulnerable, you give up a job because that job doesn't have anyone else to do it for you. In the public sector, they were able to maneuver and, do this and that. And their salaries were still coming in.
They survived. They had nothing to lose.
In full. They have nothing to lose, whether they are vaccinated or not.
Mudeo, thank you very much for joining us. We understand you're on the road. Is it somewhere where you can tell us about the traffic and how it looks like?
Shockingly, I am shaken. Mombasa Road, Gateway Mall area, I am cruising through.
Cruising even? Okay.
Heading towards the CBD?
I'm in second. I'm coming to CBD, so I've just passed Gateway Mall. I'm headed towards the airport place. And it's just open. I'm not even sure about the same road.
That's good news for everybody else using the road. Thank you very much for speaking to us, Mudeo. Have a lovely day.
Okay, welcome.
Thanks, Mudeo.
0719-012-600. We'd like to hear from you as well. So what do you think? Do you think it's wise to reopen schools in 3 weeks' time? The Education CS, Professor George Magoha says, look, let the kids go back to school. That is the chairperson of the Private Schools Association who also runs a school. And she says, the school's education sector was not a super spreader occurrence. What we have seen is that the children were very safe in school. We are ready to take the children. What do you think? Are you comfortable then sending your kids back to school in 3 weeks' time?
I mean, there's so many factors that you...
Speaking for yourself, wewe mwenyewe binafsi. Kama ndu.
Mimi mwenyewe binafsi. Yes, they should go back to school. They should go to school, especially because I'm looking at the losses that were made over that 1 year.
Yeah.
We don't want to get into a place whereby it's just redundant retrogression. It can't, because here again, we don't know how long it's going to be. So is there a way we can learn to live with this thing? And I think absolutely we have to get to the point where we do that.
Yeah.
And we lose more by keeping them home than we gain by sending them, to school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Josephat in Nandi, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Josephat, are you comfortable with your children going back to school?
Yeah, I'm comfortable. I think we need to learn to live with the virus, because there is no need of us that go to school. And our kids are staying at home. Yeah. So I think there is a need for our kids to go back to school and resume the learning. Because as you see now, the education, the program for the education has been scrapped.
Yeah.
So in an attempt that we forward opening of schools, or we make them, we open some other day. You see, we are wasting time. We are really wasting time. But I have a question: why are most of the teachers not taking the vaccine?
That's a big question. I think we should even move from that point and ask ourselves, being a responsible employer and government, should the government then compel teachers to actually go for this vaccine?
By the way, because I was thinking of what of the teachers who are going to make exams, the national exams. how would that be conducted? If at all, most of them will not accept the vaccination. And also, I heard that the virus is mutating. So I was reading somewhere that the vaccine that we have now was meant for the first wave.
Okay.
Are you listening?
Yeah,
we
we're
have
hearing.
The vaccine was for the first wave, but now we are on the third wave, which means you don't have the vaccine for the third wave. So are you vaccinating people for nothing?
Hapana, hiyo Josephat, hiyo ni story. It is a vaccine for COVID.
Okay.
What we still have is COVID. Yes, there are variants. There are variants. Now there's what you're saying, and I hear you. There is the conversation around. So now that we have a variant, let's say from South Africa, another variant from the UK, is a particular vaccine that you're taking effective on these variants, and that's there's general concurrence even with the WHO that yes, it's still able to deal with whichever variants. The question is the degree, but it's still a COVID vaccine.
Okay.
Yeah. Asante sana, Josephat, for your call, and have a lovely day. So this question of, what happens with schools reopening in a couple of days' time, there's something that Mudeo has basically said. Look, we have teenagers now who are at home. If you just look at the number of girls and boys who did not sit their KCSE, and now we had kids who sat their KCSE last year, they still haven't gone back to college. We have others who have now done their KCPE. They are going to stay at home until July. You have Form 4s who are coming home. You have a mix of very many things. There's a point now where we have a conversation about what social programs are county governments and the national government deploying to make sure that these kids are gainfully occupied during this time. Because it's going to be a big one. This one.
Absolutely. If we saw what we saw at that time for a year, you can imagine what's going to happen this time.
And there's no pressure now. I've done my exam.
I finished my exam. I'm waiting for the next step. There's nothing you will tell. And mind you, it doesn't matter where you are. Nairobi, Nyeri, Kwale, it doesn't matter where you are. Rural, urban, let loose a teenager, they're done.
Hot-blooded kids at home. And like she was saying, actually, the bigger danger here is that you have kids who are still now in Form 2, Form 3, Form 4. They know the older boys, there's the ones who've just done their KCSE, the ones who did their KCSE last year, and those are the ones that they'll be going for.
It's true.
And those older ones are now feeling they're adults.
And they're free.
Mimi nilimaliza shule. I'm an adult. I can take care of myself. And you, all right?
And you.
What? This is going to be dangerous. Yes, and we'll have that conversation actually on what the children should be doing. And remember, you can actually keep your kids engaged by going to the generationnextchallenge.com. That's generationnextchallenge.com. It's a wonderful portal that has been developed, and it keeps the kids occupied during this time, especially the younger ones who are now at home for a long time. See you again tomorrow, folks, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. At 11, Sugar and Spice will be here, and that's your lunch.